evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will call the Thursday, June 6th meeting to order. Ask that you stand and join me in a moment of silent prayer, and we will follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the appointed time for a public comment period, and I would invite anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on any items of city business or concern to come to the podium and speak to council. There will be a public hearing involving the budget a little bit later on in the agenda. So if you're here to talk about the budget, your time will come a little bit later. And there's a sign-up sheet on the podium here, and we'd ask that you print your name. And the purpose of the sign-up sheet and printing is so that we can transcribe the tape and get your name correct. And doesn't always come through with the proper spelling when we transcribe the audio tape. So, introduce yourself. And
my name is Sharon Creekmore, and I know some of y'all know my husband, Charles. And we live on Sterling Street, North Asheboro. It's like the second street down from Sir Pizza. It's a small street. 2 cars can pass, but it's pretty tight. There's no curbs, nothing like that. We have a house that is across the street from us. It's a rental house. It's a small house. There's enough room for 2 cars in their driveway. They usually have 3 and lots of friends over because it's a young couple. We came up here on May, I think it was the 10th, and talked to Joe downstairs, the lady, and to the code enforcer, Chuck. I think he did come by and either leave them something to read or either talk to them because the guy come across the street and asked us about it, and Charles told him, yeah, we had come down here, because we were concerned because they want to park their extra cars or their friends want to park directly behind our driveway, which makes it impossible to get out. I've got a picture on my phone. I'm probably this far from their car when I pulled out in the road. And the latest picture was taken just a few minutes ago before we came down here. So I don't know if is there any way to get signs put up where there's no parking on the street? Because at one time, they would park with 2 tires in the yard, 2 on the street, but I've got pictures of 4 tires, 2 cars all the way out in the street. Couldn't even back my car out.
okay, Captain, sounds like something that you guys might be able to handle, and in working with Chuck, Chuck is code enforcement.
Right.
Between the police and Chuck, we should be able to handle that.
I just told him before we came, I said, it's gotten better in the last week or 2, and we didn't even get out of the house, and there was somebody parked behind our driveway.
Well, it is unfortunate, but you shouldn't have to live like that. I wouldn't want to deal with it in my neighborhood, and you shouldn't have to deal with it in your neighborhood.
Right.
What's your street number?
My house is 202.
202.
Yeah. I've got pictures.
I know where you live.
Oh, yeah. I've got pictures on my phone. I've been taking them. I think I've got 12 pictures since we came up here to see y'all. I don't know if they think that the rules apply just to them because they live there and don't apply to their friends that come over.
Is it 203? Is that
202.
No, the one across the street.
I'm not sure, it's a little tiny white rental house.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. And the street, I mean, it's, 2 cars can go down, but it's pretty close going down, you know.
Do you know who owns the rental house?
Delbert Cranford.
Maybe another
Captain
avenue.
Jones behind you, man, is writing all this down.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah,
Between
That's who- that's
code
who the mayor
enforcement
was
and the police, we ought to be able to take care of it. And, it could possibly be as simple as talking to the landlord.
well, I think that was part of the problem. They have 2 small cars, and then they had like a Toyota 4Runner, but I think her grandparents lets her use when these cars are not working. And they had run it in the yard so much that it was just a mud hole, you know, back when it was raining and everything. And I think maybe the landlord told them, stop parking in the yard. I don't know. But they need to find something to do with their vehicles.
Yep.
You know?
Code enforcement wanted us to come to the meeting and talk to you about it, and he suggested a couple of signs, because the street was built in the 40s. I was born in 1950. And try to get a fire truck up through there, because that's happened before. We've had to move cars, that forest fire, we had cars out of the driveway, the last house. The fire truck can get up through there. And I said, you're going to have to pull them back over here. And they said, well, the fire, I said, take them down to my house. Well, I've lived there 74 years. Sold furniture for some people around here.
We'll see what we can do to fix that problem.
Okay, and I have one more question. Is there a noise ordinance in the city?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. Because these people that I'm talking about with the cars, they also have taken the mufflers off their little cars, and they are extremely loud. I don't know, another neighbor, it wasn't us, called the police about the noise, and the policeman that came out there told them there was no noise ordinance in the city. I don't know which policeman it was, but
Captain Jones is taking notes of that to find out who that is.
But the young girl lived there. She had enough sense to know that there was one, you know.
There is one.
But
And-
still don't stop them from making noise, you
And
know.
generally, and I'm not sure if it differentiates between the types of noise, but generally the nuisance noise is measured at the property line. Mr. Garner
Right,
has a meter.
right. I mean, he wants to get out there and work on his cars and just rev it, you know.
Okay.
And I'm like, please. I mean, we got a lot of elderly people in the neighborhood, so.
So then maybe
Okay.
So he took and pulled out, they bought the car, jacked them up, and took the pipe from the engine, resonator, catalytic converter, muffler, tailpipe, and pulled it off, both cars.
I don't know what he's.
Sound like something Charlie Crickmore would have done.
The mayor of Asheboro, previous mayor of Asheboro fixed me. He knew that I was dating a girl who lived across from
Was
Mr.
it any
Reed.
louder than a black Impala that looked like the
It's
Batmobile?
very
Yeah,
loud.
yeah, and he taught me that there is laws in Asheboro.
Okay, we'll get on it, ma'am, and Captain Jones is back there.
Okay,
Some of those may be a motor vehicle violation, and they can give them a state charge for it.
yeah, I mean, because when they leave our street, I can hear them they're probably down here in front of the hospital.
They come up by my house on Old Liberty Road.
I mean, they was, well, these people got into it with one of our neighbors next door to them on that side of the road, and about the noise. They were out there fussing when we pulled up one night, and I thought, oh, Lord. So later that night, I'm sure it was one of their friends come flying up the road, went up to the top hill, turned around, and come back down the hill wide open, and it was one of those cars that sounds like it's a gun shooting, you know, just popping. Yeah.
It's not a green.
I think we can try to take care of that for you. All right,
I wish you
thank
could
you.
move them for me, but.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address council?
Don't have that authority.
Good evening. My name is Lee Duransel, and I live over on Kivett Street. And the reason for my visit this evening is because I've been rescuing a lot of dogs that have been left on the side of the street. I rescued a Belgian Malamute with 7 puppies. 3 of them died. This dog was just laying on the side of the street having her puppies. I've rescued 2 beagles and also 2 puppies that came out of the woods when my granddaughter was at a baseball game. The little female first and then the male after. So I have been involved with rescue for quite a while, but not here, up north. And we have a rescue where we foster dogs, and then we try to find homes, and if we don't get a home, we keep them in foster. We also spay them, neuter them, and ship them before they are allowed to go. So my issue here is actually on Saturdays with Walmart parking lot, you will see dogs being sold out of the back of trucks and cars. And I know for a fact that our shelters are full. They're just bursting at the seams because people are buying dogs on a whim, and that's easy to do because they are cute. However, they get them home and they find out, oh geez, this dog is not good with kids. It's not, having a hard time. I mean, a Belgian Malamute, this dog needs a job. You just don't bring these into your home and think that it's gonna lay around for you. It's just not gonna. So anyway, my concern again is the breeding dogs. It's all about the money because I've talked to a few of them and they don't care who buys them as long as they get paid. That's exactly what they told me. And it's not fair. It's not fair to the buyer. It's not fair to the dog. And it's definitely not fair to us as citizens here in Asheboro. So I don't know if this is something that you can look into. I don't know, I know that when I go over to the farmer's market over here on Saturdays, all of them have to pay a dues to be able to sell their goods there. But why is it that, these dog breeders are selling dogs and, just selling them to anyone? And it's very important when you do buy a dog, which I'm sure you know, that you know the breed. You need to know what kind of dog you're getting. You don't buy a Maltese and have a bunch of little kids because they don't like kids. So that's another problem. So a lot of these puppies are getting dumped. And so what a very good friend of mine who moved down here 8 years ago from up where I am, she and I transported all the puppies up north in one Beagle down to Florida. And we transported them to Virginia. We have a large network. And they met us, and then they picked up, all these puppies were adopted, and they went to their new homes. So we've been doing this because we've been finding them. And of course, my granddaughter called me because she had these two puppies that needed help. So I just don't know if there's something that can be done about, dogs being sold at Walmart. It's just not, it's not a good thing. That, for one thing, again, breeding dogs is kind of a science. You just can't put well, you can, but you don't know, what's the bloodlines. I have no problem with breeders, but I like to know about responsible breeders, and there are plenty of those around. And another thing with us, when we do rescue, when we do send our dogs out, we also make sure that if they can't handle the dog or the dog is not a good fit, to call us and we'll come back and get it. We just don't let them dump them on the side of the road or bring them to some shelter somewhere. So that's basically why I'm here tonight, and thank you very, very much for listening to me. I'll write my name.
You said that you live on,
I'm sorry?
go ahead.
She lives on Kivett Street.
Yeah, where on Kivett Street?
I live on 429.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I appreciate your work and your compassion for these animals. It's a shame because in our society now, it's like they're throwaways.
Yeah, but we have enough. We don't need any more being bred. And I was actually at a very good friend of mine who was having a yard sale, and she volunteers at the shelter. And a man came in and actually said, I've got 6 Maltipoos for sale, $500, and I really need to get rid of them. And I spoke up and said, wait a minute, we have enough puppies and dogs in the shelter. He didn't like it too much, and I said, and plus that Maltipoos don't really like kids too much. And he's like, I really don't care whether they like them or not, I just need to sell them. That's not a good attitude. That's not how you take care of animals. So, thanks again.
Thank you for
Have
your
a great
work.
evening. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Product aside,
Come on up, Alan.
I would think unpermitted vendors in the Walmart parking lot would fall under a pretty large umbrella,
Could be, and
just period.
I wonder if the landlord even knows they're there.
I assure you they do not.
Yeah.
Or they'd have their hand out, because I know this landlord.
Yeah, so I think we'll start contacting the landlord.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alan Maldonado. Okay, the last time I've been here, I'm trying to express myself, but unfortunately, I don't speak really good English, so now I'm trying to do this way. So I'm trying to read, and everybody can read the page I provide to each one. Okay? Good evening to the Asheboro community, to the mayor, the city manager, members of the city council, greetings to all the city employees, the police department, firefighters, and rescue squad. In the same manner, to all the employees who work in our city, from lawyers to secretaries, and recognition to the people who keep our city clean and organized. I would like to start with some question or observation that I personally have. Is there a future project on the city to start building sidewalks in our community and improve public lighting? Is there a future project to construct bathrooms in the Bicentennial Park area? What is being done with the building which McCarty was previously located, since this building was acquired by the city and there is in good vacant space? What is the cost or how much has been spent on the sportplex at sport complex outside the city? What is the progress on the new fire station that is going to be built near to the sportplex, and how is that construction going? I would like to continue with some comments and leave this comment as questions.
Do you want me to answer those for you?
No, no, just I want to leave it.
Okay, okay.
And everybody can keep these papers and take home and think about it. For my first comment, I am referring to the sidewalks on this city. In the last 10 years, 2 people have been run over and lost their life. The city of Asheboro does not have sidewalks for people. Many times we have to walk in the grass, and few sidewalks that exist, it's in very poor conditions, which sometimes is better and safer to walk on the street, even that we risk our lives or happening with these 2 people. We have lost her lives. How much longer or how many people must die to realize that we need build sidewalks in order to the people to walk safely in places or commerce or in the neighborhoods, because we don't have sidewalks. On the other hand, there is also a lack on the public lighting in many parts of the city. I would also like to add, in the center of the city, there are certain pedestrian crosses for the people. I would like to ask to put up cones or signs to inform the drivers or the crosswalks, and that be the law. They are required to yield to pedestrians when approaching these lines to crosswalks. For my second point, I was wondering about Bicentennial Park, the most important park in our city, because it's in the center. It has been operating for so many years without public bathrooms. And what sense does it make to bring mobile restroom to the park, when most of the time they are closed and do not allow the citizens to use them? It is the only accessible to the public during regular concerts organized by the city or other events. My third point consists a detail that I do not understand. The city has acquired the McCrary building based on comments from workers on this factory that had closed. I understand the gym and pool was donated to the city of Asheboro. When I refer to the city of Asheboro, I refer to the community, which in this building that we are acquired are two buildings, 124 and 128 on Trade Street in downtown Asheboro. These two buildings were sold to a person. This person acquired these two buildings for a value of $24,790, which is basically a gift, knowing that one, this building values was far more at that time of sale. My question is, who bought that buildings and why at that price? Why does public property registry at this building is registered under the name of the mayor, Mr. David Smith? Do you think that when the city Asheboro acquired that property and then you acquire them from the city at such lower price, there is not a conflict of interest or abuse of power or complacency? What is the message you are sending to us?
I'm gonna
Hey,
stop you
community.
right there.
Okay.
Let's address this one. I bought that building from Acme McCray before they went out of business. I paid $235,000 for it. I don't know where you got that number. I have spent $1.5 million on that building.
Okay, it's public information on the GIS.
Boy,
I
it
see
is
this.
absolutely false.
Okay, this is the GIS
I own
information.
128 Trade Street and 124 North Street.
Okay,
I paid to Acme. The city never owned them.
okay,
I bought them when Bill Reddy was still alive. I bought that building. At the time, it was one building
okay.
for,
What GIS record are you referring to, if I might ask?
I see GIS Randall County, and they say they sold for $24,790.
that is absolutely wrong.
Okay, but it's not my fault. It's the
The-
GIS. It's
the
public.
GIS doesn't
The
have.
GIS doesn't have that. You gotta go to register deeds and convert.
Okay, it's
the
public
deeds.
information. It's not my
It is public
information.
information,
Yeah.
but that information is
But
not
that is
on there.
wrong.
Okay, this is wrong, but it's the GIS. It's not me.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not, the sale price is not on the GIS. You either check the deed stamps, or you're following somebody, it's not, the sale price is not on the GIS.
Okay, but I saw that information in, and it's public.
Yes, but we're not arguing that.
Okay, I don't want to argue about that. It's just my view. Okay.
Well, I will argue about it because you're getting ready to tell the whole city that I bought a building from the city for $24,000. That is not true.
Okay, it is not true. I apologize, but it's
There you go.
it's public record, and
And you're-
it's
and you're-
it's a loud secret. Everybody talk about it. It's not
It's
only
not
me.
a loud secret,
Yeah.
and you're reading the GIS wrong. The GIS doesn't have sale price on it.
Okay. On my point number 4, I will address and talk about the Sioux City Sportplex. I have visited and walked around the Sportplex. It is very beautiful. This Sportplex was supposed to be finished long time ago. And I remember that during pandemic, the city has closed the doors. And there was no leadership during the pandemic. There was not from the city to provide leadership, support, or guidance during the pandemic. The COVID relief funds were used for the Sportplex. I have walked around the place, and I have realized there is not in good access for people with disability or handicap. The courts don't have stairs to be able to access them since they are below the other. There are no nets that will stop the balls during the games, and the balls can go all the way down because they are basically created on terrain that is not even. But flows don't work. How it is possible that such money was spent and the engineer did not realize he need to ensure the accessibility for good handicap access
Well,
and stairs.
we do realize that.
Okay,
We have.
but I walking in that park.
Let me finish.
Okay,
We do realize that. We do have handicapped access.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, as the way you build parks now or plazas, you see where people walk, and then you put in steps or ramps.
Mm-hmm.
So if people tend to walk in a straight line, you expect to go around the box, they'll walk right across your field.
okay,
So, we are in that process. The council will close the construction project at the end of June.
okay.
There'll be some work the city still has to do out there, but the Sportsplex is up and running, it's running at full steam.
Yeah, but
Now,
that project,
as to your point about the COVID,
okay,
during COVID, the Mayor Smith declared a citywide state of emergency, as did every other mayor did in every other county in Randolph County, as every other mayor did in the state of North Carolina, and all 100 chairmen of county commissioners did. At that point, when Chairman Fry called it a state of emergency, all the cities worked under the guidance of the county. Since they have the 911 system and they're in the health field. We're not in the health system. We provide public safety, we don't do public and mental health.
okay.
Okay, and by the way, the whole time during COVID, city employees worked the whole time,
Who?
all of us. All of
Cleaning
us.
the street and the police department.
All in the police department, all in the fire department, all in the water plant, all in the wastewater plant, all here at City Hall.
I don't see help from my community, but it's okay.
Well, you can't come in here and make false statements.
Okay, can I continue?
If you quit making false statements.
Okay.
If you don't, if
It
you
is
make
false statements.
If you make false statements, we're going to interrupt you and correct the record.
Okay, that's fine. It's just my personal opinion, and I have freedom of speech.
And we have the responsibility to govern.
Okay,
There's not one of those 8 soccer fields down there at the park
Okay.
that does not have a
Okay.
gradual ramp going into it. There are no steps at the park to get into any of those 8 fields.
the park the sportplex don't have access to stairs going to field. You have to walk all around the field and come
But
back.
there is a gradual ramp that goes to every single one of the fields.
Okay,
Now, the people that want to walk down the hill, the bank, they walk the shortest distance,
okay,
straight line.
Is ADA compliant and it passed all engineering?
And there are curb cuts everywhere there's a curb, a raised curb, there are handicapped curb cuts. So you need to go back down there and look around a little more.
yeah, I want to go again,
That'd be wise.
because I'm resident of this city. Okay,
Oh,
We
and
I-
by the way, the park is city property.
Okay.
In the city limits of Asheboro.
okay. So this park costs over 20 million, right?
This
Yes.
park cost,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, another city project in the center of the city, particularly next to the police station, David and Pauline Jarrett City Garden. This project is more than 20 years old. I'm grown?
Wrong.
I'm grown, okay. So the only progress I see is the demolition on the house and some cleaning of the trees. But
Okay, hang on there. Let me add to what's going on. The design is 90% complete. We have completed all the federal requirements to apply for federal grants to build the park. We have applied for those federal grants. It's called Land Water Conservation Fund,
Okay.
LWCF. The funding cycle won't be till this fall. This fall, we'll know if we receive the grant.
Okay,
At that point, till then, we're just waiting to hear from the federal government.
okay,
If
And we
we
are
receive
accepting
the
donations.
grant,
Okay.
we'll begin construction.
okay, that's fine. I'm not a politician, just, it's my vision about my community. On this point, I wonder, as a member of this community, an incredible amount of money is being spent on projects on the city which are unfinished.
Well,
Or-
hang on a minute. The Sportsplex, we will close a construction account in 2 weeks. The Gerald Garden is in the design phase.
Can I
We're
go?
getting ready to move to the funding phase.
Okay.
In the Dressing McCreary Building.
As a resident of this town and of this community, I see the development in this and the infrastructure and the progress to develop our community left behind. It's not possible the city employs, particularly those who represent us or those who work for or will bring are creating rules, codes, and regulations to control our properties, our homes, about what we can do and cannot do. If we want to do some improvements in our properties, we have to pay them to give us permission to do something that it's all right.
Hang on a minute.
Which-
Hang on a minute.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay. The Constitution gives you the right of free speech, the right of assembly, the right of, all those rights that are guaranteed in the Bill of Rights. It doesn't give you the right to add on your property. Okay? You have to follow the city codes. If you wanna add on this in the property, in a city limit, you have to follow the city codes. You live in the county, you have to follow the county codes.
Yeah, I know the
Live in
city and the county is
Greensboro,
different.
Every locality's different from everyone else.
Okay.
Now, there's 2 sets of codes. There's the building code, which is the same across statewide. It is a state building code enforced at the local level. And there's a local zoning code that is entirely the authority of the local governing body, whether it be the city council or the county commissioners, depending on where your property's located.
Okay. God, I get lost. Okay. I have here for many years on this country, no one is above the law. But when people with economic power gain power politically or representation in government, conflict of interest and abuse of power begin.
Okay.
Okay,
Alan, let me say it again. There's no conflict of interest here. Either you're a city employee and you're governed by the city personnel ordinance and the state of North Carolina statutes, or you're a elected city official, which is elected by the people, including there'll be another election next November.
Okay.
And they are governed by the laws of North Carolina. That includes how they conduct themselves.
Okay. Let me ask a question. Why Asheboro don't have sidewalks? When everybody in this town who lives inside the city, they pay taxes, and I believe the people have right to walk and save sidewalks. 2 kids was killed in the past 10 years. It's impossible the city have a budget for 24 and 25, only $40,000 associated with the DOT, and they spend more money on the golf course behind Wendy's on Dixie Drive. They spend more money there to build sidewalks for the city, for the citizens. the change of command say the community is on top. City mayor, city manager, city council members, police department, all departments below. But looks like the community is on the bottom. We don't have improvements on the city. They spent another $93,000 on another trailer to park on the Bicentennial Park. Not make sense to me. All the time, that trailer is locked. I walk every day, morning and night, and I want to try to use the restroom. It's always locked.
It's
I
always
have to.
locked, Alan, because we move it around to where we need it for other locations.
The park
It's
don't have
always-
restroom.
It's always locked also, because if we leave it unlocked, we have a crime problem there.
Okay, but why they spend another $93,000 in one trailer when the people can't use?
Why are we buying another restroom trailer?
Mm-hmm.
Because the demand is so great when we have events in the park or events at other locations where we have fixed restrooms, like McCrary Park or Memorial Park or North Asheboro Park, that we have so many people there that we bring in mobile restrooms during the event.
Okay.
We do not own that Bicentennial Park, by the way. That is owned by the railroad.
We lease it. We lease it.
We lease it.
Okay.
And we were told when we leased it that anything we built out there of a permanent nature had to be removed if they told us to remove it. We do not want to spend the money to build a bathroom and then have the railroad come in and say, we want you to move it, take it out.
Okay.
The
Nor do we
purpose,
want to build a permanent bathroom and take up already short parking spaces, or build a permanent bathroom and take up already short green space.
And it's
This is
challenging
our
to find an
best
abatement
option.
Situation as it is.
Yes.
Okay. In my position, I have personally gone through several inspections, and I have applied for projects for my business, and I have tried to follow the rules, codes, and regulations that have been created for all, or us, as a member from this city. Thought when one does not agree in the way in which they are violate your privacy or simply enter or leave your property without your permission. And one
Okay,
tried to
Alan,
fix.
Hold on a minute. The building inspector doesn't have to have your permission to go on your property. I believe the building inspector actually placarded your construction site to stop work, and you removed
Remove
the
it.
placard. Isn't that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And have you gone, as I told you, to get an attorney, so the attorney could represent you?
we're trying to build stuff on
Yeah,
that
but I turned
lot
down.
that
And
does
when
not meet our
when I
requirements.
tried to come back and talk, you remember you banned me from the city, and you can
I
ban
sure
me.
did.
But you can ban me, it's a
And
public place.
I sure did, and I tell you why, because you yanked our no stop worker placard down, you threw it on the ground, and you came up here and challenged the employees who did it. So we had a choice, tell you to leave or go over to the magistrates and swear out a warrant.
I fixed that problem anyway. From entering to the place of building, that's supposed to be belong to us, the community.
Alan, I just answered that question.
Okay.
The building inspector.
Let me jump to the
come in.
next one. All this that is happening in the city, where everyone, all the employees, all the business owners, vast majority on the community knows that you are not creating opportunities, not the condition for us to have safer and more prosperous, and any of you honestly think that you are not contributing anything to benefit to the community, allow someone else to try to do the work that you are not doing, and represent us in the way you should be represent us, can be no opportunism or obtain advantage of title or your position in the city government.
All right, Alan,
The-
next July, July 2025, you can file for public office,
No,
run for the city council.
I'm not a politician.
These people aren't here either.
Okay,
These are just citizens just like you are.
the only thing I want us remember on this community is not to have a government which those who represent to us have privilege. I do not want the community to be humiliated or ignored. Ouch. I do not want the community to live marginated or forgotten. I want to remind our representatives or leaders should be not lie. They don't should to steal. They should not to abuse their power, and they don't should not to betray us, the community. You represent the community. You have the responsibility to create a better living condition for everyone in our community. You are not your position to see why the general laws allow for you personal benefits or desert to groups, friends, or families. It is the community, not for the personal benefits. In this method, I may finalize my comments, my observation, and personal points of view about the work has been done for our community. I hope by using my rights on my free speech, saying what I think and what I feel, I not attack it personally on my life or my business for expressing my disagreement about how decisions are being handled in this community in which I live. I invite the people who participate to be a little more active and seeing what is being done for us and what projects they are improve our living condition as community. Ladies and gentlemen, our community shall not be to govern it under dictatorship or monarchy. This is United States of America. This is my personal opinion. I know maybe some feel attacked or offended, but I live in this town for many years. And most of the young people call Asheboro Trashboro, and I don't like it because I believe Asheboro have the capacity to grow better with good leadership. We live in the center of North Carolina. We have the zoo, and we don't provide good future for the future generation. I'm angry, I'm upset. What I see, I spent more than 20 years of my life in this town, and I don't see progress. Just recently with the Toyota factory and other factories come to the city. But most the business or the growing business on city is private investment. It's not projects coming from ideas from the government. Thank you for the time.
All right, before you sit down, Al, you got a question on here about the McCrary building.
Mm-hmm.
Let me briefly explain that.
Mm-hmm.
When MAS bought the manufacturing assets of McCrary Hosiery, they moved out of that building. They did not buy the building.
Mm-hmm.
The building's sitting there. The McCrary people had tried and tried and tried for possibly 4 or 5 years to sell that building to somebody that would redevelop it for apartments or mixed-use space like you're talking about. And they couldn't sell it. They had a lot of people come look at it, and nobody would buy it for various reasons. It's in pretty bad shape. There's no parking. Various reasons, nobody would buy it. So it's sitting there, they've moved out, Acme ceases to exist, and it's sitting there empty. We had homeless people in it. We got a grant to purchase that building, the city did, with the idea of reselling it at a reduced price to someone that would redevelop it. And tonight on the agenda, we will be instructing the staff to draw up the proper papers to transfer the ownership of that building to Downtown Asheboro Incorporated, who is our downtown development arm. And they have a contract with a developer out of Wisconsin, or no, Virginia, somewhere, Virginia, to come in and redevelop that mill property. So we are the go-between. We took state money, bought the building, and part of the reason we did that was because if it sat there much longer without some expectation of somebody doing something with it, we, the city, would end up tearing it down and hauling it off.
Okay.
And so we will instruct our staff attorney to do the paperwork to transfer ownership of that property to Downtown Asheboro Incorporated. And they will in turn, within a month or so, I believe she said within this month, by the end of this month, she should be able to move that property to the developer in Virginia that wants to put apartments in it.
Okay. Sir, what happened with the fire station that's supposed to be start built close to the Sportplex?
It is in design.
It is on the sign. Okay, the
We-
last I
we
would have
hired
been here.
engineers to come in and design it. It's not something we can do in-house. We had to contract with a design firm that specializes in fire buildings, fire station type buildings. They are in the design process. Once they finish, we will start moving forward with, we have funding from the federal government. We're looking for some additional funding, and we will start construction when the architects finish designing the building. So, and that is in the city limits, as is the sportsplex in the city limits.
Okay.
Now, I want to share a little bit with you. Every time one of these soccer clubs that comes from out of town to use those 8 fields, 2 days, Saturday and Sunday generally, we get $8,800 rent off of those 8 fields every time they play a soccer tournament. Is that right, Jonathan? Basically, $8,800. We also have a $5 million sponsorship on that park by Cone Health. That, so while I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that park will pay for itself, that park will be a great investment for this community because it puts people in our hotel rooms, our campgrounds, our restaurants, our gas stations. When there's 2,000 or 3,000 kids down there playing soccer on a Saturday and Sunday, their families are spending money. That's why we built that park.
I know, and we need it. But that's my view about that Sportplex. But my biggest concern is sidewalks. We don't have sidewalks, and everybody in this town who lives inside the city pay taxes. Asheboro was found maybe many years ago, and the only sidewalks we have on the street, they are in very bad shape. I walk every day. I invite someone from the city to walk with me and looks the condition on the sidewalks. It's horrible.
It's embarrassing. I agree. I wish
We need
could
to do
build
something,
sidewalks.
just not feel like, oh my God, it's so bad, but we don't do nothing. We have to do something. We have to work to provide and create better future for the next generations. It's not like just say, oh my God, it's bad, later. I think we need to fix the problems we have inside the city. We have a lot of issues inside the city, and sometimes I think we don't pay attention to that problems.
And I
And
would,
they try to grow, but they grow with not good organization.
On a
I'm
personal
not a
note-
politician.
on a personal note, I'm gonna invite you to go back to your records, whatever records you found, and find out what I paid for that building. and
Okay.
Who I bought that building from, because I did not buy that.
I apologize,
building
it
from
is
the
grown,
city.
but it's on GIS information.
I bought that building from Acton.
I have a
Group.
screenshot on my phone, and I can show it.
I'd like to see that, because
Yeah.
I just looked it up on.
$24,970, I can't believe.
Just pulled it up, it's not there.
Okay.
And when
Show
I
it to us.
put that restaurant in that building, by the time I finished that restaurant building, I had $1.5 million in that building. And I don't see a whole lot of other people spending money like that downtown Asheboro.
Okay, so that's my only concerns, and the another one is about the police department. I participate on the Citizens Academy,
Yeah, Citizens Academy.
and I love that program. And I walk inside the courthouse, and I walk inside the police department, and I see we need a new police station. That station is old and tiny. I know we have another stations, but it's very old, and it's very bad.
Let me
Shane.
just close with one statement. We will build anything the citizens of Asheboro want to pay for. We'll build a new police station if the citizens tell us to build a new police station and that ceases to function. But the functionality of that building has changed because where the police used to have to go back to their desk to do reports, they do them in their car now. Every car has a computer. So we opened the North Asheboro branch to give a little better service to North Asheboro, to represent the rest of the citizens that were a long way from the police station. So, we'll build whatever the citizens want to pay for. But, it's unfortunate that the dollar doesn't go as far as it used to go.
I wanna resurface every street in town.
Okay,
But it gets back to,
that's
what
all
do you
my,
want the tax rate to be and how much debt do you want to incur? You can have anything you want if you can answer them two questions.
okay. So that's all my question. I give you the information in a minute, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
His daddy teaches my
Captain
son-
Jones will take care of your problem.
His daddy taught my sons to tie knots in the school, in the Boy Scouts. This rascal here, I can't talk about what we did. And, your father was a great, an outstanding man of my son. Thank you, Shawana. I've lived here 74 years. Go to the grocery store and look at your wife and look at that buggy and how much you got in there, and when she gets home and she tells you how much she spent in that buggy, God help us. And the city is just like that. City of Asheboro is no different than ours, they go into the grocery store.
Preaching to the choir here.
I know. I appreciate you. Like I say, Mary, straighten my butt up. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Crickmore. All right, well, is there anyone else that would like to address the council? You sure?
That's a risky
Right.
question to ask right now.
That was brave.
Well, I feel compelled to say something, but can I?
Come on up.
Come on up, Pat.
Hi, my name is Pat Hall, and I grew up here, but I moved away for about 34 years, and my husband and I moved back about 2.5 years ago. I have seen a lot of change. I was here when the zoo started, and those things don't happen overnight. I mean, this city has grown and prospered in a lot of ways that I never imagined. And I think it was just, 5, 10 years ago that wasn't there a little documentary made about Asheboro being like the most dying city?
Fourth fastest dying city in
Okay,
America.
all right, and I,
16 years ago.
okay, all right, I remember that, and I, yeah, and I'm just, am I happy about the tax rate and my property taxes increasing the way they did? No.
Most unusual.
But I am very proud to come back, I mean, because we lived in Kansas City and Naperville, Illinois, and large cities. I'm very proud to come back here and see what has been done, and see the, even RCC is just flourishing, and they offer so many programs for people to go for free to be educated, whether it's high school or, you know, college courses. And I'm just really proud to come back here and see what I feel is Asheboro is really thriving.
Thank you so much.
Thank
May I brag a little bit on your daughters?
Oh, yeah, my granddaughters.
Granddaughter, she has twin granddaughters that start for Kansas State basketball.
Yep, they do.
Freshmen.
They did, and they're rising seniors. So they just got back from a trip to Africa and with the basketball team. So it was a very eye-opening experience for them, you know, that they built a basketball court and helped with renovations of a new medical facility. So yeah, they're really hard workers, and they're honor roll students as well.
I know you're proud of it.
Very much so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When I came up to the council meeting, I came a little early for another meeting, but it took me about 10 minutes to get from turning off of Fayetteville to Sunset. They then turned down by the Lumina to get over here and get the one parking place I found. When I first was elected, I could leave the house about 5 till 7 because the lights were on blank. If I missed that one tumbleweed, I was still early, so.
Okay, if there's no one else that would like to address the council, then we will move on to item 4. Council, you have in front of you the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that you would like to remove for individual discussion?
I just want to know what M in zoning is. What is that?
Mercantile,
Mercantile?
it's one of the business districts.
All right. Were you asking to move that off the consent agenda?
No, I just wonder what M stands.
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as you have it in front of you.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Have a motion by Mr. Burks. Do I have a second?
Second,
Where was the second?
Ms. Heath.
My ears
Also
are
known
playing
as Kelly.
tricks on me. Ms. Heath was the second.
She doesn't sound that much like Charlie.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Okay, I will open a public hearing on the
Public hearing.
proposed 24-25 annual operating budget, and I will call on Ms. Reeves to help me make sense of it.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, citizens. Today is the advertised time for the public hearing for the annual operating budget for the 24-25 operating year. I would like to say that if you pulled a copy of the budget off the internet prior to today, that is no longer the accurate budget. There have been updates that have been sent out to be published, and the City Council, you guys all have a packet at your desk of an entire new packet. So all you need to do is put the tabs in there. I didn't switch out because I didn't want to move people's notes, because I feared people written notes in their budget book. So, but if you could do that, and then, of course, the presentation is updated as well from the workshop. Starting with the general fund, it is balanced at $48,188,719. Looking at revenues, property tax collection is our highest source of revenue for the city of Asheboro. About $26 million come from DMV and real property tax penalties and interest. And the tax rate is recommended to stay at 71 cents per $100 valuation. No changes there. Other taxes and licenses, we've got solid waste disposal tax, which comes quarterly, levied for cities based on per capita, for cities and counties that provide solid waste management programs, and tax on short-term rental vehicles, $54,883. Intergovernmental revenues, local option sales tax and city hold harmless sales tax, $10,773,000 and some change. Sales tax is our second highest source of revenue. Utility franchise tax, $2.5 million. That is our fourth highest source of revenue. Our third highest source of revenue is actually our garbage collection for recycle and garbage collections that we set the rate for. Alcohol beverage board revenue, $661,000. We have a $20,000 stipend, and the last several years, the ABC board has given us a year-end contribution of $300,000, and they have not given any indication that they will not be able to continue to do that, so I've budgeted accordingly. And then we get, annually, we get
Does
one.
that mean you put nothing in the budget from the ABC board?
No, that means I put $661,300 of which is the stipend that they give us at the end of the year.
Okay.
Profit sharing, essentially.
And then alcohol beverage tax comes once a year, $113,776. PAL bill allocation, this is the gas tax derived from money paid at the gas, at the pump, and this is what we use to fix and repair some of our city streets. Permits and fees is another category of revenue. Building permits and inspection fees are a little bit over $500,000. Zoning fees a little over $32,000. Hangar rent that Cardinal Air collects for us and send us a portion of it is $60,000. I will say that at the end of this presentation, there will be some detail about changes in our permits and inspection fees and our zoning fees that will go into effect in January of 2025. This is, normally our fees and changes go into effect in July when the budget is adopted, but staff wanted to make sure that they did a good job advertising the fees, talking with the builders and the people who are using the services to educate them about the basis of the change and get feedback from them before we actually started charging it. So those will be going into effect in January. We've incorporated 6 months of the increase in that estimate. Sales and service. As I said earlier, refuge and recycle collection is our third largest source of revenue at $2.8 million. Concessions through our arts and cultural services and recreation, $76,000, and program revenue for arts, cultural services, recreation, golf, and sportsplex, $632,000. And DOT gives us a little bit of money to mow the lawn along the highways. We do a lot more mowing than we get paid for, but we like our place to look nice. But they give us about $30,000 is what they're saying. We provide school resource officers to the city schools, 2 at the high school, 1 at each of the middle schools, and the city schools pays us based on their wage. Interest investment, $200,000. The police department wants to use vice and narcotics funds and treasury funds that are collected from undercover operations and given to us. There will be detail later in the presentation of what these funds specifically are going to go to, but we estimate $203,000 based on historical and what we want to spend it on.
They're generally restricted.
Yes. It is restricted
How-
for
how they-
specific purposes, yes. Randolph County is supposed to give us $500,000 for improvements at McCurry Ballpark. They agreed to give us $1.5 million and $500,000 stipends over a 3-year period, and this is the last year. And then miscellaneous category, $153,255, all the little nits and pennies and stuff that's not material enough for me to tell you and list tonight. We are proposing to finance vehicles, $1,444,608. We do have plans to sell a piece of property that is a lot on Frazier Park, where an old building that we used to use for storages, we're no longer using it. We've considered that it could be a fix-up place for another a family, and I have fund balance allocation of $52,000. The $52,000 is new, and the reason why it's a fund balance allocation is because I found out today that 4 of our vehicles that we are financing will not be here by June 30th. Therefore, I have to roll it over and put it in the new budget. We'll get the money for what we would have spent will go back to fund balance this year, and it will come back out of fund balance next year because of the way the accounting works.
And we ordered the trucks last month sometime.
Oh, it is a year and a half it's taking us to get some vehicles. It's very challenging for our departments.
Got a Toyota truck, I'll sell you.
So, in general fund revenue, this is just a picture that shows our tax collections and intergovernmental revenues, which is the sales tax and the utility franchise tax, are, when you combine them all together, is a very significant part of our budget. We're very dependent on that, and if those things change, then that would be challenging for us. Not included in the budget is funds from the exclusive naming rights agreement executed with Cone Health. It is not included in the budget at this time for a few reasons. One is the agreement is structured with upfront payments, but it's a very long-term commitment with some stipulations in the agreement that we need to be considering. The first billing doesn't even come until January of 2025, and payment, according to the agreement, needs to be made by March of 25. So we aren't going to have it for a full year, the first $1 million. We may get it just in the third quarter. And then we just need to have some thoughtful discussion about the contractual obligations, what the city's needs are, and I am not equipped to make a decision on my own about that, so the council and staff will be talking about that at a later time when it's a more relevant topic, relevant at that time. Okay, from an expense perspective, our governing body, the governance part of our general government, the mayor and governing body, city manager, and legal and city clerk, $749,701 goes for that category of expense.
Now, is that the going funding for a monarch?
No.
And our
Well,
cars and horses are a little shabby.
internal support, I look at the finance office, IT, municipal building, fleet maintenance, and human resources as kind of our internal support avenue departments, because we actually service and take care of everybody else in the city. Of course, finance does pay the bills, but we're paying the bills facilitating the work of everybody else in the city. So you've got $743,000 plus for finance, $641 for information technology. I will tell you that Todd has plans to retire our current director. He will be retiring at the end of this year, so we will be back to a 3-person team, 4-person team, because we took on a couple people in order to allow him to train them, and he will be missed. Municipal building, $300,000. The municipal building does have $200,000 in there that goes for maintenance and repair of the building. 3 sides of this building were put under a contract for repair to take care of the fact that we're getting the coating, the special coating on the outside has worn away, so moisture is coming inside and destroying the walls and impacting the offices and things like that. That is actually a contract we executed in this year. It will need to be rolled over into the next year. And then Michael had another section of that, the front side, to be done, and that will actually have to be pushed out another year, just because of the timing. So it's not only vehicles and equipment, it's just things take a lot of time to get done. Fleet maintenance, $2.1 million, and human resources, $432,000, for a total of $4,220,871. Community Development, Planning and Zoning Department, $1,492,528. We'll give you some more detail on where that's going later on in the discussion. And then Economic Development and Community Support. Economic Development, $520,831,000. That will be specifically talked about at a later date. We'll have a special public hearing to talk about how we want to disperse those funds, divide them out. Economic incentives, $547,654. These are incentives that have been granted to different industries, businesses in town that have are expanding, increasing their employment, giving a good wage base, and we work with the Randolph County EDC on these, and you'll have more detail on that later on. Community support are local agencies that we are funding. The Finance Committee of the Council met to discuss these applications and make a decision on the funding arrangements. $1,383,485 is that category of expense. Public safety is our largest category of expense in our operating budget, with police department being a little more than 13 million, fire department almost 8 million, building inspections 435,000 plus, and fire inspections 328,000 plus, for 21,696,578. And we are seeing over the past few years that public safety costs are continuing to increase, and I am hopeful they will stop increasing because it makes budgeting very challenging, but we are still navigating through those issues. Last year, we budgeted $20,818,000 for public safety, and this year we've got $21,696,000 for public safety. Transportation categories of our budget: operations at Public Works, $1.2 million, street maintenance, $4.5 million. There is some money in there for some streets, not enough to hit Mr. Moffitt's goal in the time that he wants it done, but we do have some specific streets flagged for maintenance, for being recovered, resurfaced, and repaired this year, and we have a list ongoing, and we are committed to trying to continue to address that. Engineering, $466,000, and Airport Authority, $310,000, for a total in that area of expense of $6,565,088. Environmental protection, that is garbage and recycle collection operation of the city's expenses, a little bit over $3 million allocated to that. And then culture and recreational division, you've got arts and cultural services, which is Sunset Theater, and a lot of things that don't really go on at Sunset Theater but fit the cultural category. Recreation services, Zoo City Sportsplex, golf course, library, and facilities maintenance that takes care of all of those places, those facilities. For that division, it's $8,998,178. So you look at that, you can see all the different divisions and how the division costs roll into the $48,188,719. So what is contained in the budget? A 2.5% COLA increase in January, estimating about $320,000, and that's just the gross salaries. You've also got the fringe benefits, the cost associated with retirement, health insurance, things like that that come along with that. 20 million in salaries, 445,000 in police special separation allowance, 2.85 million in health insurance, 2.72 million in retirement, and about 300,000 in police 401k. The city of Asheboro only does 401k at this time for the police department. So our personnel expenses are a little bit more than 28 million, which is about 58.2% of our total budget. New positions are built into this budget: assistant city manager, planning and zoning tech, public information officer, DAI economic development position. I'm not exactly sure what that position is going to be called, but that seemed to describe it pretty well. A new building inspector, because there's so much business going on downstairs, and Zoo City Sportsplex, we're hiring more people out there to maintain and do programs out there. And we've got two people hired right now for maintenance, and we're working on the rest. We spend $868,000 on workers' compensation on property insurance, $1.1 million on debt service, $2.3 million on capital outlay, $720,000 on utilities. I'm glad I don't have that utility bill. $1.8 million on fuel, $102,000 plus on various software subscriptions, and $40,000 in planning and zoning department for website, social media archiving subscriptions that cover the whole city of Asheboro. In the category of maintenance and repair, as I noted earlier, we've got $200,000 for exterior sealant. We've got some money in different departments for budgeting for some maintenance and improvements in those departments. $80,000 for the police department, $12,000 for human resources, $15,000 for fire department. We've got $350,000 in there for resurfacing streets, and those are the streets that are our priorities: Stowe, Strait, and Greensboro. We have $500,000 in the library for the HVAC system. This is rebudgeted from 23-24. We have part of this is funded by a grant, and then $25,000 to make some repairs at in a section of the airport terminal roof. So maintenance and repair, $1.1 million. Contracted services. Got IT, police department, $532,000. $279,000 of this is for 911. We've got various fire department contracts. We do contracts with the local volunteer fire departments when we can't quite get exactly out to an area in the timeliness that we want. So all those contracts together is about $31,000. $600,000 for the street lights. I have $277,500 in there for upgrading of 3 traffic lights. These are located at Elm and Worth, Elm and Brewer, and Worth and Main. In talking with David Hutchins, he thinks that before we spend this money, we have some thoughtful discussion about whether it is really worth spending $277,000 on traffic lights. He feels confident that he can manage the traffic pattern by stop signs, four-way stops, maybe, I don't know, you've got other traffic mitigation things like speed bumps, which I don't know if they would be applicable there or not. So we'll have a conversation about that closer to the time when we are spending that. $30,000 at the airport. And we are finally, I think, after requests of a few years now, we're going to clean the curtains at Sunset Theater. Total of $1.5 million in contracted services. This is one of our years to buy a lot of computers. We have all of us have computers, only most of us do. $81,060 across various departments. This isn't all of our departments. Todd has us kind of staggered so that we're not all buying the computers at the same time. From a budgetary perspective, that's great, but it's also from a workflow perspective. He can't set up all these computers for the whole city, all in the same operating year. Takes some time. Professional services, I've got $120,000 requested in planning and zoning, and there's a list of the different things that Trevor wants to try to use this money for: downtown parking study, small land use study, transportation plan update, possibly looking into a mobile app that will help communication from the public to the city staff. We do have a contract with Piedmont Triad Regional Council to help us provide administrative support for our grants. And then possibly wants to maybe consider that we may need to have some design services about maybe modifying the current scope for the Gerald Garden, just because I think it came in at about $1.4 million, and that's a lot, and I think feedback is that we might want to scale that down. So he asked for some money considering all of these things. Professional services, out of the city manager's office, we spend $48,000 for federal legislative and grant writing assistance. This has been very important to us. This is how we have gotten these grants over the last few years, based on the relationship that the city manager has with this firm and the mayor and his and council members' trips to different governmental leadership offices. They kind of help us schedule and have been really an asset in helping us get some funds. $40,000 for the airport. As I said, $31,000 for fire contracts. I have to pay my auditor. Developmental associates for the police. We actually hire out recruitment to a service, not recruitment, for promotions, to make sure that everything is done properly, adequately, everybody's given, no bias, any of that kind of stuff. They do it very well, and we've had a great success with the people who have, as they've been promoted through the police department. And then police department has a recruitment video for $6,900. Total professional services, $307,024. It's interesting today that you need to have recruitment videos to recruit for your police department. You've also, on the radio, I've been hearing a lot of audio commercials on the radio for recruiting for police departments and stuff. The police department has had to get very creative in the environment that they're operating in. Economic development highlights, as I said, 520,000+, and this allocation will be discussed and approved at a public hearing at a later date. And then the $547,654. There's a list of all the different economic incentives that we have committed to, listed there, of what entails that $547,654. Financed. We finance our vehicles annually across the different departments. You can see the different vehicles that we're purchasing to finance. We're hitting a lot of different departments. Police, fire, building inspection, operations, fleet. Street department, we actually had to rebudget the street department. That's one of those that was purchased. The order was put in right after the resolution for financing was approved at the July meeting, and we still don't have the trucks, and we have not been given a date. We've been given a lot of dates, but none of them, all those dates have passed. We haven't been given a good date of when they'll really be here. Garbage truck, $435,000. Service truck and facilities for $60,000, and then we've actually had to rebudget. This is part of some money, truck and trailer to haul equipment at facilities, from facilities to Zoo City Sportsplex, and then later is we're going to be rebudgeting one of their pieces of equipment too. $50,000 for building reuse grant matches that go through the planning and zoning department. $100,000 for community redevelopment for these unpermitted encampments, dilapidated structures, low-income homeowner. $150,000 for Trevor's community development program. $20,000 for code enforcement. $40,000 for sidewalks. We've invested in sidewalks this year, we've invested in sidewalks next year. We have a plan with NCDOT over the next several years of hitting certain sidewalks that are being built while they're doing some highway projects. $164,000 in the police department and $107,000 in the fire department for equipment. In this budget, we have $240,000 for a trolley bus. We've been renting the trolley bus that you see at some of our cultural events. It's up to $65,000 a year, and we only now have one agency that is available to rent them. $91,700 for the restroom trailer, which was discussed a little bit earlier, but people really like those restroom trailers much better than those green and blue mobile individual restrooms that we used to get when we were having park events. $500,000 in maintenance and repair at McCrary Park. This is matched against the Randolph County $500,000. It is restricted, or specific, I should say, that the money has to go to McCrary Ballpark. $23,500 for playground improvements, $80,000 for protective netting at the golf course. This is the second protective netting that we've put up. Chemicals at the golf course, a bunker rake at the golf course, and as I said a minute ago, $52,000, which was what is fund balance appropriated in the general fund budget, is the truck for facilities maintenance that is now projected to come in at the end of August. 2 vehicles for Zoo City Sportsplex staff, utility vehicles, and then a golf cart for them to get around the park. A turf vehicle for Zoo City Sportsplex, $18,000. $16,000 for a stand-on blower to blow the Sioux City Sportsplex fields. We'd probably have to hire a whole bunch more people if we were going to be using backpack blowers to blow off those fields. $65,000 for a track mower to hit those embankments at the Sportsplex. $140,000 to the Airport Improvements Fund. $100,000 for the concert series partnership that we have with DAI. $48,000 for Lake Reese, and $120,000 for the library. We are heavily funding Zoo City Sportsplex equipment this year because of just finishing the Sportsplex. You know, we've been talking about the different needs that we're going to need as through the construction phase, but now we've got to get it funded, get these out there, and then hopefully we'll be able to focus on some other departments with some other needs next year. Police department is using, as I said earlier, U.S. Justice funds and DEA funds. I checked with Chief Brown to make sure that all of these do qualify. I had him double check to make sure that they qualify for using those special undercover seizure funds, $183,439 for 4 new canines and all the equipment that goes along with having canines. As I understand it, I think we only have one now. We have 2? Yes. Okay. Community agency funding, I referenced this a little bit earlier. These are the recommendations from the Finance and Public Safety Committee of the City Council based on the applications. Boys and Girls Clubs, Habitat for Humanity, Arts Guild, Senior Adults, Family Crisis, Lydia's Place, Our Daily Bread, George Washington Carver's After School Program, Rhino Leaps programs at Sunset Theater, and Blue Comets Youth Football, total of $325,000. Okay, as I said earlier, I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are fee changes. I've given each of you copies of the slides so that you can flip through these and digest the detail in a higher level. I've highlighted with yellow what is changing in the different departments. These also will be available on the internet for individuals to look at. But you've got building permits, you've got plumbing permits that are changing, electrical permits, heating and air conditioning permits, basically in all categories of building inspections. The staff reviewed all of their operations, compared it with, other areas and determined that these changes were recommended. And then in fire prevention, which is also fire inspection, you've got some changes. And these are all highlighted because these were never included, these specific fees were never included in our budget ordinance in the past due to oversight. They have been charging for things. They're not all brand-new fees, but I was highlighting them because it is new to be included in the budget ordinance that you will see at the end of this month and that you will be adopting with the budget. And I just want to make sure that that was clear. There are no changes in the fire prevention penalties. Planning and zoning has a nice schedule for me that shows the current fees and the fees that they're recommending. Again, they're recommending an effective date in January of '25 for all of these. Zoning compliance areas, sign areas. Okay, there's several requests that were in the budget that are not funded in the 24-25 operational budget, and I just wanted to highlight some of these for you, educate you on the reason why they're not included in the budget, or so one is I can't fund all of Walker's desired improvements for streets. But we do have money in there, as I said earlier. We're also looking at other sources of funding, possibly using some of the money from Cone Hospital naming rights agreement, looking for a state grant. Mr. Ogburn has requested $500,000 from the state grant. And we've also learned that Randolph Electric Economic Development Capital Improvements Fund may be able to give us some low cost, borrow from them at a lower cost. So we're going to be pursuing those avenues. And obviously, when the cycle comes around and the state budget is adopted, we'll learn more if we got the $500,000 that's requested.
These come somewhere, because that's barely 10% of what you need.
I know. Airport terminal improvements, always a lot of improvements there. We are pursuing federal and state funds for that. I don't have any specific detail, but it is something that we are pursuing. I went backwards, so I apologize.
Who's your conscience?
Fire training facility, they asked for $150,000. But we are going to look to see if we can partner with RCC. They have a training center. We think that a partnership with them will work a lot better than us trying to build it from scratch. So we're going to pursue that. The police and fire requested ATVs. We focused on getting the recreation department what they needed as far as ATVs this year, and we'll look at funding police and fire ATVs for the sportsplex for next year. And debt service, after this, we're going to be talking about, after this part of the council meeting, we'll be talking about a financing agreement. The debt service payments are for 24-25 are not in there. The debt service payments for 23-24 are in there because we know what they're going to be because we've got the agreement in hand. But since we don't know them and we typically close on the loan at the end of June, we don't include that debt service. But it is going to be an obligation. Probably right before our meeting that we had for our workshop, I learned that there was a $750,000 possible cost or need to replace the library roof. And Mr. Ogburn wants to talk with the Asheboro Public Library Foundation and Friends of the Library about trying to do a fundraising campaign with them so that the city of Asheboro is not covering the cost all itself. I understand there are a lot of different areas that are leaking, and we are going to consider all options, whether you repair those that are leaking or whether we replace it. It is a specialized roof, and it is a historical property, so as I understand it, because it's a historical property, we can't just go and put a regular roof on it, and that goes to the big cost of it.
I was approached about that particular project on Tuesday.
Well, now you can go back and tell them more.
I can see the need for more virtual books at the library.
Yes.
And a smaller
Did
roof.
they want the roof fixed?
Yeah, they want the roof
And they
fixed.
don't want it, they want a historic roof preserved, that's correct.
Considering the person who approached me, I would say historic is probably accurate.
Yeah, they've approached me too.
Yeah.
Okay, fire station number 3, vehicles and the fire station. The estimate we're working with is about $9 million. We do have $3 million plus $1.9 million in grant funds, but we are pursuing more grant money. We are also looking at whether we can qualify for a USDA rural development loan. We have to change the rules or get an exemption to those rules to qualify for that. And we're using the professional services organization that John works with closely to try to get those rules changed. We are certainly in a somewhat rural area, but I believe there's a population requirement that has to be waived because we are over the population, if I understand correctly. Because of that, we don't qualify for it. But we are seeking that out. Obviously, we're going to need new fire equipment. The biggest would be the $1.5 million fire truck, and of course, new firefighters. Zoo City Loop. This is a fixed route transportation with electric vehicles. Year 1 budget, which I believe has been presented to you before, is $844,000 with $440,000 for capital outlay and $400,000 for implementation and operating. We have requested and applied for a public transportation grant for the $440,000, which is the capital outlay. We have not gotten a written agreement, although we've been verbally told that it's looking good. We are going to have to make some decisions when we actually know if we've gotten the grant, gotten the paperwork, of whether this is something that we want to pursue and what we want to incorporate into our budget on an annual basis. The future costs of this project would be at least $210,000 per year added to our budget. So that will be coming at you later on, and decisions will need to be made at that time to give us guidance on how to proceed. Center City Garden. Just to start back, the Center City Garden, from a finance aspect, it probably was in verbal conversation, but you started seeing activity in this area in 2019 when David Gerald donated some land to us, and then the city purchased 2 additional pieces of land to create the environment for the land. And then there was a community fundraising campaign in which we raised $82,985 for it total, and that is the fundraising campaign plus when Pauline Gerald died, individuals gave towards the campaign. So that's kind of how the Center City Garden started in 2019. Where are we now? The designers recommend $1.4 million. That is a cost from a year ago. This does not include the visitor center element, does not include maintenance and operational costs. There has been a grant submitted for $420,000. If the grant is awarded, then the city will need to match the $420,000, and this will fund paved parking, fencing, smooth surface paths, and restroom building. So this has not been put in the budget because there are other things that have to happen before a decision needs to be made on this. There is a discussion, just because we always try to think of alternatives when we see a figure of $1.4 million, of doing a scaled back option with city forces doing the work that would change the scope of the project a little bit but cost a lot less, and eventually make it into a passive open space preserve that can be improved over time versus trying to do the $1.4 million right away, especially right on top of the 2 large projects that we've had at Zoo City Sportsplex and McCrary Ballpark.
Oh, go back one more slide. If you do the 420 and 420, is that contingent on your building the $1.4 million plan, or could we do a 840 plan?
Well, the things that I've noted, that the components of the plan.
You could do the 840.
Yeah.
you're gonna spend $150 as opposed to $840. That's a tough call. I mean, there's not that, I mean, it's only a conversation like this is $250,000, not a lot of money. But, there's a lot of bang for that buck.
Yeah, we would need to, as far as the scope of that 1.4 million, what I marked there is what is specifically included, and we would have to do
That
that.
juncture, in my thinking, you're spending $250 and somebody's gonna give you $420. But you gotta have the $420 at the end of the day, but I just, that math was.
Great
weird.
money, grant money
You know,
is
you
great.
get-
Grant money sometimes makes things happen.
If we were lucky enough to get the 420 and we matched it 420, it would be a really nice downtown facility that you could build into.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause I'm not sure the 150 plan's gonna
Well, I
be
think
the
that-
item we're looking
can you-
for.
can you-
It's something to start with, I mean.
Can you
Yeah.
flip it one more to the 150? Yeah, no, I think that goes along with the 840,
This 150?
doesn't, okay.
No, this is not funded, 150, just
Yeah,
like
this-
the
none of this is funded,
420,
I just said
right.
it's gonna-
But this
You
is
got the
just,
420, you really need to, gonna have to give some serious thought to where you're really headed.
yeah, and this is staff brainstorming on trying to give alternatives for you guys to have for discussion, consideration down the line, of what we can do.
Anyway.
Now, I will say that in putting the budget together, I was trying to pay attention to council funding priorities that were discussed and kind of agreed upon at the February 24 council meeting that we had being directed by Matt Reese. The task of that, or the goal for that workshop was for council to review the current general fund capital projects and determine their priority, to direct staff where to focus efforts and monetary resources. And this was presented at the special, at the March 2024 council meeting. But the consensus of the council at that meeting was Trade Street parking is important and urgent. This is the piece of land that was right next to the Walker Building. They wanted us to make sure we do that. Trade Street revitalization with a new scope of work is important and urgent. You want to get that addressed, finished, work within the scope of our grant without doing additional funding. And then the other thing that you said was fire station number 3 is important, so that is why we're going after grants, additional grants, and trying to help fund that the way you guys want that to look. Other projects that were noted and considered, public transportation is important but not urgent, which is why I didn't put the Zoo City Loop in, because it said important but not urgent. Gerald Garden was decided as not important, nor is it urgent at this time. And McCray Ballpark, the discussion at that time was we were holding for further information regarding lease details and potential for unfunded tasks to be sourced by other avenues of funding. And this is directly from Matt Reese's report that was presented at the March meeting. So when you ask why certain things aren't in the budget, I was referring to the decision that you guys made in that meeting as helping to guide me on what was priority and what wasn't. And when you talk about a capital infrastructure plan, I will say that after we go through the budget process, we are going to be working on a CIP plan for general fund and for water and sewer fund to give you guys a picture about what we're going to look like down the line and try to help guide us on future decision-making. Moving on to the water and sewer fund, it is balanced at $23,282,669. That budget amount of $23,282,669 does not include any change of rates. These are the current rate structure for inside city limits and rate structure for outside city limits. It includes $7.9 million for water, $7.8 million for sewer. Now, we are going to take a hit for water and sewer on our revenue because with the zoo annexation, the zoo is currently paying outside rates and they will be moved to inside rates and the tier for outside is 2.5 times the inside rate. So we're gonna lose about $200,000.
Are we not gonna pick that up with,
We didn't do any rate increases, so,
I'm talking about, with the city schools?
pardon me?
With the city schools, they're gonna be start paying at the beginning of July.
City schools, the estimate based on historical was, our actual is gonna end up being a little bit less than that, because we did the estimate based on what the usage was, and before they had to start paying for it, they weren't taking care of the lines, they had a whole lot of leaks. We've done a lot of investigating.
We think it's gonna be 150, they might now call a plumber.
They're gonna call, yeah. So I don't know.
And Terry Tucker wins again.
I got data log reports for the city schools, went through all of them with them, and they set their staff and got contractors out there and are giving me the indication that they have addressed all the issues, so I don't really know exactly what that revenue is going to be.
Factor any, is that in here, any of that, or is any of that revenue projected in this budget?
As far as the city schools,
Yes.
yes, I have a figure in there, but it is not the original figure.
It's not the 150 we thought about.
No.
We thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, the 150 would be based on actual usage if they did nothing, if they kept treating it the way they did, they have been treating it.
We're on the edge of our chair, so what is the new number?
I don't really know how to project that because
Put something in there.
I put about 50,000 in there for it.
That's almost criminal.
There were a lot of big leaks. I mean, and it's hard for me to determine exactly with, I can only do a data log report for Act to 90
I
days.
certainly hope the number's not near that. I
They had an
appreciate your
elementary school that
conservatism.
was
but-
doing almost nothing, and another elementary school that was doing like 10 times that.
Once I get September,
That
a
looks like
September
free
month,
money.
I'll be able to determine whether that's a good indication or not. You can't use August, obviously, because it's not a full school month. And so we'll be able to figure out whether estimate versus the other, once we have figures with them fixing things. Randolph County is supposed to be reimbursing us for lift station number 14 when we get it built. State grant reclassified. We have been approved to reclassify the state grant. We had a state grant that was classified as only water only, that we were going to be using for the intake valve at Lake Lucas, and the state has agreed to reclassify that so that we can use it for water and sewer, which allows us to use it to cover some of our sewer expenses that are included in this budget. And it's also reclassified as maintenance and repair, capital improvements, so some of our larger needs are going to be addressed by that grant. We've got a state SRP loan. In the past, I did, by mistake, called it a Division of Water Resources loan. We researched and got the correct name, and I apologize for my oversight in the past. Installment financing for the rolling stock in the water and sewer funds, and I've got retained earnings allocation for $412,552 in this budget, for the same reason that I have the $50,000 in the general operating fund. That is the cost of 3 vehicles that I found out today are not going to be delivered by June 30th. 2 of them, they said, will come in probably the end of August. The other one said early July. We're just hoping. But either way, since I'm not guaranteed receipt of them by June 30th, I have to include it in the next year's budget so that the encumbrance can roll over. Water and sewer take 3/4 of our revenue. And then you can see we've got a loan that's a big significant, which I did not update my loan type there, I apologize, but a big part of our budget. This is the breakdown of all the different departmental expenses: billing and collection, water meter operations, water maintenance, wastewater maintenance, water supply and treatment, wastewater treatment, technical services, system maintenance, which system maintenance is all our lift stations that are outside of the plants, and water quality. Total budget, $23,282,669. Typically, wastewater treatment is a little bit, the cost for wastewater treatment is more expensive than water supply, but we've got some projects in the water supply and treatment budget that is throwing it over higher than the wastewater treatment. And that's just a breakdown, you know, salaries, which I said in the general fund is a significant part of our budget. In the water and sewer, salaries and contracted services are the two biggest parts of our budget. Just like with the general fund, we've got 2.5% COLA for January, 7,880,000 and some change for salaries and fringe benefits, 34% of our budget. It is different than it is in the general fund. The general fund is over 50% of our budget. Chemicals and contracted maintenance and stuff associated with the complexity of running a plant takes a lot more cost in the water and sewer fund. $151,000 for workers' compensation and property insurance, $706,000 for existing debt service, and $548,000 for capital outlay in different departments: the meter department, water treatment, water maintenance, sewer maintenance, system maintenance, and technical services. I tried to divide it out so that not everyone was, you know, they all had requests above and beyond this, but I tried to hit each department a little bit. $60,000 in capital outlay equipment that's not going to be financed, $1.1 million in utilities, $1.1 million for maintenance and repair. Chemicals are $1.4 million, $175,000 for meter replacement. We used to budget like $130,000 for meters. Meters are a whole lot more expensive now, and they are also very hard to find. So we are trying to buy them as we can get them. I don't know that we'll be able to find all of those meters, but we're going to work on it.
Debbie, how much did we used to budget for chemicals?
Pardon me?
How much did we used to benefit for chemicals?
For chemicals? Oh,
Increased.
800,000 at one time.
This almost twice.
Right.
Anything made of bronze or brass,
Right.
can't get it, and it's out the roof.
And a lot of our chemicals are petrol-based chemicals, so it makes it very difficult to get those two.
Found that valve under the water tower over there.
All that.
56,000, almost 57,000 for permits and fee certifications, and 191,000 for professional services for compliance with changing regulations. We are a highly regulated industry. $6.6 million in contracted services. It is pretty amazing when you look down and you look at all the assets or the parts of the plants and parts of the water system that are all necessary to keep it all going. You've got $500,000 for Lake Bunch intake, $350,000 for Lake Reese generator, which is rebudgeted, $500,000 to replace NIT pump station, $200,000 for soft start AB blowers, $500,000 for both lift station 14 and lift station 6. These are included because of the development. We need these to be working and installed in order to service UARI schools and the developments that are going down in those areas. 50,000 wet well rehab, 20,000 for pump repair. You can have a pump that will operate at 80% capacity or 70% capacity, and then you can repair it and get your 100 capacity back. So we try to repair instead of replace as best as we can. Of course, the $2.7 million for the lift station rebudgeted, and then $150,000 for both lift station 27 and 7, and $280,000 for the lift station for the Ag Center. We have to do that because the Ag Center is moving along. Purchase is approved in 23-24 and rebudgeted. This is that $412,000. Dump trucks at the wastewater treatment plant and water maintenance. I guess dump trucks are hard to get built, just like everything else. And the underground pipe camera truck for wastewater maintenance. This is what we use to pipe the sewer lines. Okay, big picture. Funded requests in the recommended budget are a small part of the need that the staff is communicating to us. We've got aging systems that need to maintain. We did have a conversation earlier in our workshop about regionalization. Of course, regionalization is going to be a big change for us if we go that route, but we still need to maintain our facilities regardless of the decision of regionalization, because regionalization is not something that happens right away. We have to continue to operate while you build a new wastewater treatment plant, or if we choose to take one of our water treatment plants and build a new one and retire the old one. It takes time to build those. So you still need to maintain your aging system. And this is just the detail on the water treatment plant and the wastewater treatment plant, built in 1939 and 1962. And they have, water treatment plant has not been upgraded since '88, and wastewater treatment plant has not been upgraded since '96. The programs that used to allow us to upgrade plants are not as readily available anymore. So that's why you have to kind of hit areas each year, because you can't just get all the funding. Okay, this is information that was presented at the 23-24 budget, but still holds true. 2014, council approved an increase in water and sewer rates. 2015, we had two professional studies that looked at our infrastructure and said that we would need to do rate increases over the next several years. We did not implement rate increases for various reasons. Michael Roney gave you a presentation with regard to, this is the wrong thing. Fiscal year end, February of '22, fiscal year end audit presentation, we were cited for loss of revenue using our reserves over multiple years, and we had to respond back to the local government commission. And the response that we sent back March of '22 was that we would raise rates, and we would raise rates over the next few years because we realized we had aging infrastructure at both the plants and we needed to fill the gap. Michael Roney presented to you guys in April of '22 a professional study that went over our asset inventory, basically everything in our plants and our operation, and talked to us about some very large costs associated with improving our facilities, which may make regionalization looking really good. It's $150 million is what they were projecting, but July 22, we did improve an increase. July 23, we did not. Now, this budget is put together without an increase, but I would like you guys to think about doing an increase because of all the things I've just talked about. I know it is not an easy decision. There's a lot of things that you guys need to consider and think about when you talk about changes like this. But I'm trying to provide information relating to the maintenance and repair in our operations and where our revenues are going, and a rate increase would be helpful. North Carolina general statute says an enterprise funds needs to be self-sufficient. If you look at the budget, we are using loans and grants to take care of things. So we are really not operating at a self-sufficient level. You don't know if those loans and grants are always going to be made available. So that's a reason why we need to look at this. And the local government commission, of course, they oversee our operations, and they say that we need to have fees should be adopted to cover our operating costs. Again, since we're using grants and loans to cover everything, we're a little bit behind. And there are reasons, good reasons, why we didn't make the decisions that we did, but those reasons do not necessarily apply today. Just to give you guys food for thought, a 1% increase will bring in $160,000 of revenue, and it will change an average 550 cubic feet bill by 72 cents. 2% increase will change the bill by $1.41. And a 3% increase will be $2.11. We did a 12% increase before. I don't really want to do a 12% increase. Large increases are really hard for our citizens. If we do multiple small increases over time, it is a lot easier for our citizens. So that's another reason why I'm asking you guys to just talk among yourselves and be thoughtful about this request.
And the 550 is just the average bill.
Yes.
Consumers,
We're also recommending fee change at Tot Hill Farm Development. We have grinder pumps at Tot Hill. When we took Tot Hill in, we had, the documentation that I recall reading said that we would charge for the grinder pumps at their cost. Well, that cost is really hard to pass on to the consumers. We basically have a $12,000 annual maintenance cost for those pumps. Average life of a grinder pump is 4 years. The cost to produce to buy a grinder pump and install it is a little less than $10,000. If we charged at that rate, we would be billing our customers $54 per month, $648 a year. I'm not recommending we increase the rate to that much. That is too much to push on to a customer. We're asking to go from $10 a month to $15 a month for the grinder pumps. We have a very big gap. We will never catch that gap, but this will allow us to collect a little bit more for those costs. And we have not been doing increases for them.
There's a lot more structures out there than 19. Most of the Todd Hill neighborhood is on a gravity system, like ours are. This is, I think, the Johns Ridge neighborhood. If you ever go out there, the Forest One, you can't go any further being the city limits going past the golf course. And my experience with the people that have had the grinder pump, they have alarms on them. And you've heard me say this many times, nothing ever goes wrong Monday morning at 9 o'clock, does it?
It doesn't.
It goes wrong Sunday night, during the Super Bowl, Christmas. The family I know that we went out there and fixed those was going off Christmas Eve, Christmas morning, about 2 a.m. And they went out there, and our guys went out there, fixed it, had them, by 8 a.m. They were repaired. The waste didn't go all everywhere. And I say this many times, all of a sudden the city didn't look too bad. I think this is a very reasonable charge for the experiences those folks have. Those grinder pumps are, if you're in that business, they'll tell you they just have a lifespan.
And also, there are certain ways, you're given information on what can and cannot go into your system with a grinder pump. But human nature is that we put everything in it. So,
We avoid them.
Charlie, do you have
Y'all
a
have
pump
one?
system that your like place?
You have one?
We avoid them.
Yeah, we avoid
We
it.
avoid them any way possible on our
Down at Baden Lake,
Why would they put in there?
these numbers are right, and they have no mercy on you. You had to hook on.
Yeah.
I got involved in that.
I wonder why.
Previous owner didn't want to hook onto it until he had to, and I do not blame him for all these very same reasons.
Yeah.
The cost of a septic tank that you could not
$5 a month.
have out there would be horrendous. You'd end up with a low pressure system or a dosage system, and that thing would be more than the 9,900. Now granted, they can operate cheap. A dosage system has a pump in it too. That $15 a month is horrendously low.
it is,
And,
but
and this is not a neighborhood of just particularly challenged.
They're not financially challenged.
They are.
But I do believe it's better to implement things in phases. And if we hit at 15 this year, maybe we can go up next year and go up a little bit more. It will, you want me to go up higher?
I don't think economic status needs to be considered in what the rate increase is.
Okay, if you would like to
I'm just talking
recommend,
about in general, everybody should be looked at the same. And
Yeah.
You guys are welcome to recommend a different rate. I'm, just because I worry about, being slow. And I'm not real familiar, since I'm not born and raised here, I'm not real familiar with that neighborhood and the economics.
I don't care if we leave it the same or make it $40. You're not gonna change this a significant dent in it either way. I'm just saying it's horrendously cheap.
Well, I will tell you that
Either number you
our
want.
system maintenance department that is out there fixing these all the time would love a $40 a month payment.
That won't fix your problem.
No, but he would feel like he wasn't working for pennies.
Fair enough. Anyway, I'm just,
Make them think twice about what they put in it.
He also says
they're
that.
high maintenance items if you operate them correctly.
Well, when he looks at repairing them, he's looking at what's going through them, and he's like, they would last longer if people followed the rules about what you're allowed to do.
If you give me one of those $10,000 systems for $10 a month, I probably wouldn't care enough. It'd be like, it's kind of like a school with free water. What would you suggest, Mr. Jogden, for the rate on the grinder pump? Too much, too little, $15 is a plenty?
I questioned even going out there and having 19 grinder pumps, but that was long before I was here.
Well, that ship is sailed and sunk.
Yes, it has.
We're in agreement with that. That was a bad idea.
Yeah, it keeps getting worse.
Day one, yeah.
Well, if you want me to change it, please let me know.
Told me you weren't gonna hook up at the lake.
Hmm?
You told me you weren't gonna hook up at the
I had to sell it.
I know.
I make money hooking it up.
Okay, just like with the general fund, we've got variety of fees that Water Resources is changing. This is in your packet, your copies of PowerPoint slides, so I'm not gonna go through each of them. And these are concerns for down the line. I asked the departments, what are their concerns, what can happen that we're gonna need to be thinking of down the line. And wastewater treatment plant, they are very concerned about a water line replacement at Lake Lucas from the wastewater treatment plant. They're worried about emerging contaminants, which Michael has talked to you guys about a lot and will continue to talk to you guys about a lot. Wastewater treatment plant, pump repairs are a big concern. Fresnel Street water line. They know that we need this to fund economic development towards the Ag Center, but we can't fund it right now. Lift station number 13, downstream gravity, we need to work here for economic development in the airport area, but it's not something that we can fund right now. But these are things that our experts are worrying about and thinking about. And of course, regionalization.
The regionalization is really just the plants. And it has zero to do with our aging pipe distribution system.
No, it doesn't, but it does address the aging plant issues.
It will, and that takes that off. But you'll still be operating a distribution system. You'll still be under the same financial guidelines that will require the break-even status that we're not meeting.
Yes.
That is true. We'll be in the raw water business, the intake structure business. We'll probably have some new raw water lines if they regionalize this. So we still have a gapping hole, whether we have a regionalized water and sewer plants or not.
And I really would like you guys to consider rate increases to help with that area.
Yeah.
These are just, I'm not going to go over these future budgetary concerns, just as just information. We shared these at the workshop. Okay, do you guys have any questions for me, or is there any discussion that you'd like to have about the budget?
Debbie, I've got a quick question.
Yes.
Just at the May workshop, the water and sewer budget was just a little bit higher, around 24.8, and it's gone down a little bit. And just doing some cross-checking here real quickly, it just looks like some expenses have changed, revenues changed. There's no major thing that.
In both the general fund and the water fund, there were some changes that were made. Just little things, nothing big.
Okay.
Anything big, the biggest thing is the fact that, the rolling over of the equipment. There were some things like insurance. One of the departments didn't submit insurance in their budget request, and I didn't catch it, but I caught it after the presentation. Well, obviously, we have to pay for insurance in everybody's budget. Michael, I transposed some numbers with typing. If he asked for 15,000, I typed as 1,500. I wish it was 1,500, but he reviewed his budget and said, you know, this need to be changed and stuff.
Okay.
So just minor things.
Got it.
Nothing really material, but, so my big things for you guys is, like you guys to do a rate increase, and please tell me if you want to do a change for the grinder pumps.
That's not fixable either way, but duly noted.
June 27th is a budget adoption meeting at 6 p.m. And copies of all the documents will be in the city clerk's office.
Let me say, about this water sewer situation, I would like to have some kind of workshop on that sometime. I mean, I got questions that I could ask you here. You know, it's really not pertaining to the budget specifically right now, you know, about like the intake valve, I mean, like the landfill, leaking all that water into our sewer system that we can't treat. I mean, there's a whole zillion questions.
We can
You
do
know,
that.
I mean, I would just love to have a workshop just on the water sewer situation. And, you know, we can, Mike explain it to us and deal with it. It seems like we just keep kind of kicking the can down the road and hope something's gonna happen. Also, I see things in the paper where cities are getting plenty of infrastructure money to work on these things now. And I don't know why we get infrastructure money to work on it. I mean, I can't understand that. But anyway,
So we need,
I'd like to suggest that sometime.
yeah, that's a good idea. We'll schedule that. We'll get through this budget process, and we'll
Yeah, that's what I
get
was
back in
thinking.
the fall, and we'll have we can do a much more detailed, deeper dive.
Well, if there's some planning being done around this capital infrastructure plan, it's all interconnected. So
Yeah.
we could do it in relation to
And I
that
would
once
probably
that's
roll
developed.
out a capital improvement plan to you guys for discussion purposes in phases, general fund, water fund, just because it's too big, too much information. And we may do the plants and the maintenance separate, things like that, just to try to spend time so that you guys can ask us questions and we can have the department heads there to kind of give you guys information, because I can't remember everything they tell me.
Yeah, because I agree, Bill. I mean, there's a lot of questions.
Well,
So Mitch, I mean, and to me, this is a priority over any other park or anything we're building. I mean, seems like this water and sewer deal, we got to act on this to figure out something, you know, I mean, because, I mean, we don't have, I didn't have any water for about 8 hours, a couple
Were
days
you
ago.
impacted by that?
That's no fun,
Walker was
I tell you
impacted by
that.
it too.
I had low pressure, I had your water.
All
I was further down the hill, we still had a little flow.
Newbern and,
Yeah, you didn't have water either.
Foxmore, all of that was out. Big leak there, break at,
It took us a long time to
Newbern
fix
and
it.
Zoo Parkway.
But we have one of the nicest vacuum excavation trucks in the industry. I mean, you talk about neat cleanup and safety. The safety that provided for our employees to not be in that hole. It was impressive to watch the repair. It was a dangerous
Okay.
thing we had it, but,
This is
I'd
the
like
most
to.
important slide. I want you guys to think about this slide.
In previous slides, accumulation of what I have seen.
Is there
Now,
somewhere you go?
just go back to that slide. I'm gonna summarize what I think I have gleaned from all of this. We're in 3 or 4 catch-22s right this minute. One of them is we've been cautioned by our auditors to not take, to the lack of merit for taking general fund money to support the enterprise fund. That's at the very least frowned upon. And that can put your whole audit at risk of being accepted. And we have done that for good reasons, because we thought the economy was X or Y or Z, but at this time, so that's sitting out there, so that's got to be addressed. We've talked about how we get money for more of these items, whether it be from grants or this sorts of things. And it's just like going to the bank and I make X, my car's broke down. If I don't get to the job, I'm not gonna make anything at all. Well, we really understand your problem, but you don't make enough to make this new car payment. And they won't loan us any money to fix these things, cause we can't cash flow the payment on paper.
Michael has shared that many times.
And so there is money out there. It's kinda like the Gerald Gard was a perfect example where he's talking about, the 150 was one thing, but for 250, you can get 420,000 of free dollars. We've gotta be able to match that money. We gotta have the seed money to match it, which we match to get the loan, and we can't do that with our current rate and income structure. I remember the rate increase, well, we had to have a significant one, cause we had to react quickly and swiftly, and it was not pretty. That based on, and Ms. Heath pointed out, for us, just the known cost of chemicals and brass bronze issues, it'll get eat up by the 2 or 3% number. The 2% number in the middle strikes me as a good starting point for this year, in that we in our other budget for our employees, we addressed the COLA rate at 2.5%. I don't think we should exceed that, just if we're gonna have parity amongst our thought processes. So I would support and recommend, and if you'd like it in a form of a motion, the 2% increase. I think the grinder pump number needs to be $20 a month. I'll make that a separate motion, so that if people want to vote on that separately. Mr. Mayor, how would you like to have it? Or does that need to be a motion, Jim?
If there's consensus, you can do it that way. If you do need a vote, you can consolidate them, Mr. Mayor, if that's what you would like to do.
Well, let's do it in 2 items then.
Anybody feel necessary to have a vote?
The question, I think, Mayor, is, do you wanna let it, if that's the wishes, if that's what you want Debbie to come back with, do you wanna come back, 2 weeks from now and she needs to budget that and show you what it looks like?
Well, I've already told you the figure. The figure's 320,000.
Yeah, but I think you need to budget it. We need also, the 50K is too low for the school system. We need to amend that. And then we need to come back and show them that on paper. And that could be, that could also let that lie open for the public to react to.
That needs to be at least 50%.
I'm sorry?
That needs to be 50% of what we thought it was.
Yeah, I honestly don't exactly remember what the figure I put in there for them is, but I did include something for it.
We'll dig into that.
But I can go back.
And we'll work a number out and come back to you. So everybody can have it in front of them, so they can understand, and we'll show you what that, if you wanna put that money back, we can do that as well, or do something different. I mean, it's up to the council. I just hate to, I want everybody to make sure it's in front of them and they understand where we're going.
All right, so we got 3 things here. We got, the 2% increase, which I think most everybody's okay with. We got going to, on the grinder pumps, going to 40 maybe.
20.
20.
20 at this time.
And,
a note, don't do that again. I mean, we inherited that thing in a strange.
Don't do what?
Take on a grinder pump system again.
Oh, okay.
That should belong to the homeowner, period.
Yeah.
But that's a philosophical thing for another day.
And then the third item was getting a more accurate number, or what we feel like may be more representative of what we think.
Well, I can tell you exactly what changes I would make if you make a change. What I would do would be to increase our revenue by the amount recommended associated with it, and I would reduce the amount of the loan, the state loan that we're splitting between water and sewer, and it would allow us to use that to, we've got probably as much as we can handle getting done with the I think it was 1.8 million or something that I put in there. 1.8 million, I would reduce the amount of that state grant by the amount of the increased revenue that would come, which would allow us to have that money next year to put towards more capital improvements. That's exactly how I would recommend changing it, because I don't have any recommendations of any more capital I would add or any changes to things, so it would just be an increase of your revenue and a decrease of this source of
Well,
revenue.
and unfortunately, this 2% is not keeping pace with the increased cost.
It's not.
And we've got a lot of ground to cover, and we can't stop runaway inflation in some particular items in the economy.
To retain earnings allocation, you're gonna charge back when we get the vehicles, right?
Yeah, it's gonna hit
It's
the
gonna-
budget this year, it's gonna come out next year, it's gonna wash. Just because the way the,
We've got to demonstrate to the league, to the government commission, that we're doing something. We gotta show the EPA what we're doing. We gotta show the auditor what we're doing. The only way out of this is increased volume in sales, and that's a minimum of probably 2 years off before that water starts shipping to Wolf Speed. Growth is the only way out of this hole. We can't rate increase our way out of it.
no,
Not
but,
entirely, especially not in a,
Then we get some more economic development sites, there won't be much growth.
Briefly, where are we at on that? I understand that the plan is looks like it's about ready. So when are we gonna start building the water line? You got any idea? I mean, is it approximately, anybody?
I don't have that information.
Okay, I just wondered about that.
All right,
That's another thing to talk about.
But
They gotta
that would
start
be
this
what I
fall,
would
or
do,
they gonna
is
have
I
a
would
dry
increase
building.
revenue and reduce
Well, I
the
guess
cost.
they're starting out
They're
with
gonna start
Siler
with some
City.
Siler City
Yeah,
water.
I understand that,
If
yeah.
we were talking about Lake Lucas, and I guess the intake valve,
We're gonna reapply, we're gonna ask for another grant to take care of that. That's what
we're not pumping anything out of Lake Lucas right now.
Not at this
correct?
time.
And how many times have we asked for grant funding for that?
I only know of one time we asked for it and we got it,
I think it's.
but I don't know.
We didn't get it, but we got this,
Years now.
we got the money we got was,
I ask about it all the time.
the federal infrastructure bill.
I thought we had asked a couple
Yeah,
times and
we've
been
asked for
denied
this
and
to the Wake,
just,
Lake,
okay.
But
Lake.
that cast iron raw water line gives up the ghost, you'll have to pump out Lucas.
Two.
Yes,
So,
yes.
That's just.
That is something that we are gonna have to, that water line is gonna be very important for us to address next.
You know, cause I can tell you what the life expectancy of that thing.
And if you recall, when the hurricane through, we broke one of those lines, and we've got it, I think I told you guys at the workshop, but one of those lines broke at the hurricane. We got it repaired like within an hour of when we were out of water.
And that cast
So
iron
it's a
line
very,
is a fragile
it's a
ghost.
very important thing that Brian is really paying a lot of attention to.
The ductile line, I'm not as worried about.
all right. Any more for Debbie as far as marching orders?
So that's adequate, Jeff, as a consensus, and they'll be in the budget at the end of the month.
If it's agreeable with the council, the clerk will mark it down that the city council gave a consensus opinion that they're not approving anything at this point, but they do want the finance director to come back at the budget adoption meeting with adjusted numbers that definitively reflect the 2% potential rate increase, the $20 per month grinder change, the school system calculation, but those are all calculations that are to be redone in the broader context for the council's further review and consideration, if that's agreeable.
And when this is put online, I think it's important to mention those three items so everybody's aware of it, or at least has a chance to see it and be aware.
yeah, that's.
Yeah, we don't
that's-
wanna come back on the last
that-
day and
that's-
say, oh, by the way.
Yeah, that's,
You
that's
just
what I
well
said
tell
when I
them.
said we need to
yeah,
promulgate that.
That's a good point.
The people have a right to know,
Yeah.
because it's already been in the paper, what we presented, so we need our friends in the media to help us put that out too.
What I could offer is to rebuild everything with those changes and send them out digitally to everything and have it posted on the website as well.
When you post the percentage change, would that $1.41 per month be reflected or just say 2%? I think it's important that they.
I would do the 141 and the 2%, because I think that helps make it more
That's what I'm saying. I think
material.
But
that
you have to
information-
communicate that, I think is the.
Yeah, if we just put the percentage out there. it should
2%
be,
doesn't mean anything to anybody.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't,
$1.41
but when
means
you
something.
put it in the context of something that's measurable for their, you know,
We
like-
should at least say we thought it would be wise to lose less money.
Welcome aboard, Elisa.
Yeah, I mean, no,
That's
I'm
the best
literally,
thing I can
you know,
put on it.
All right,
we've talked about this previously, and we have to educate.
okay, hang on.
Just tell, we can tell them to call her now, that when they call. her.
I would give that information
I think
that's there.
the $1.41 is very important.
Very, very.
Yeah.
And we have to educate people about why. That's why Elisa is here. All this information that's been presented,
Yeah,
there's
Elisa.
reasons why that we have to do this.
So I can say that I can put a memo on top of it, just kind of summarizing, and Walker, I can listen to the audio tape. We can take the summarization
Oh,
and
that'll
say,
know you to
based on
sleep.
this, here's a presented alternative budget for your consideration and for public review, and make sure it is available to everybody. Does that
Okay.
work for all the rules?
This is a public hearing. I haven't called on anybody to speak. Is anyone in the audience who would like to address council regarding the proposed water and sewer budget,
Or the whole budget, period.
or the whole budget? I'm sorry, the whole budget. The City of Asheboro 24-25 budget. Okay, hearing none.
And this is why, Mayor, this is why we leave it open 2 more weeks, we'll let the state do their thing, and we don't meet at noon to adopt it. People can't come at noon. So we wait till nighttime to adopt it. If people wanna come, they should, give a chance to come, right or wrong.
I believe there's a whole lot more you bargained for, isn't it?
Well, I mean, as I sit here and listen, I mean, I'm faced with the same, issues every day. One of the gentlemen or somebody made the statement, you know, we gotta be self-sufficient. If we can't pay for our own way, you know, I think it's, not wise to depend upon grants to pay for things. We should be able to fund, I mean, I don't live in the city of Asheboro, I do live in the county of Randolph, but, nobody likes increases. But, I know today, when I go and buy something, or I do repairs in a facility, they're more than double what they were 5 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep.
I see it every day, I'm dealing with the same issue. And I will say this, I had a situation with a contractor who, any rate increases on to me for over 10 years. And then they just hit me this last month with like 120% increase. So they're trying to capitalize on all the money that they didn't hit. It's a lot easier to stomach 1 or 2% at a time than 12%. So I think, honestly, from looking at your numbers here, you have no choice but to increase your rates. And you'd be better off to increase them a little bit now, maybe a little bit again next year or the year after.
We can get
I
the ball.
still don't think you're gonna catch up. Right now, you're in the hole.
We won't catch up, but it's progress in the right direction.
Well, volume, I'm hoping volume catches up. I bet about lunchtime Monday, Bill would've paid $1.41.
All right, anything else on the budget?
As always, Mayor, we thank the,
Volume, what you're talking about.
Mayor and Council, we thank you for the time and the, effort and the energy you put into this. This is, one of the major, a budget's as a checkbook, but it's also, it's a policy document where you lay out your tax rate and your rates and what you think the money should be spent for. So along with your zoning ordinance, your city code, your strategic plan, they're your major ways the council talks through, speaks to the public. So thank you for your time, and we want to thank Debbie for doing a really good job tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yes.
Okay, we got a lot more to do tonight. Mr. Sermon,
Oh, chapter 6, Mayor.
6? Oh, that's Debbie again. All right, go ahead, Debbie. You request approval of resolution to accept installment financing terms with Pinnacle Bank.
Yes, in your packets, you should have been given, and it's also was provided to be posted, is an installment financing agreement and a resolution to adopt financing terms with Pinnacle Bank. If you recall, the resolution of intent for financing was adopted, I believe, in July, earlier this year. We sent the request for proposals out to 5 banks who had contacted me and asked to be considered for our financing. The proposals were sent out in April and returned in May. The amount for the financing is $1,190,667 over 59 months. This year, Pinnacle Bank was the lowest responsive bidder, offering a rate of 4.59%. The next lowest rate was 5.28%. We have scheduled the loan closing for June 25th. And we've included as I said earlier, we have included an estimate of the financing cost in the budget itself, so no other action has to happen there. So if there are no questions, I recommend adoption by reference of the Pinnacle Bank financing.
It's
Mr.
sad
Mayor?
how much a cheap rate has become.
You know, I was really surprised that that rate came back. I was thankful. But there should be a resolution in your packet that the bank
We was getting
provided.
it less than 1.
All right, any questions?
Before any vote, Mr. Mayor, if I may, just to clarify for the record, everyone did everything they were supposed to, but the legal counsel for Pinnacle that prepared this put a line that needs to be in the minutes, so just to make sure we're accurate, it says, Mayor Smith introduced the following resolution, a summary of which has been provided to each council member that has been made available, a copy of which was available to the clerk, and which was read by title. So with your permission, I'm going to read the title so that truthfully the minutes can be accurate. The title for the resolution is a resolution approving an installment financing and security agreement to finance motor vehicles and providing for certain other related matters. With that bit of housekeeping, whenever you would, if you'd like to entertain a motion, we certainly, as Ms. Reed stated, would recommend
Any
adoption.
questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve by reference.
Mayor, I move we adopt the resolution by reference as enumerated by Mr. Suggs' title. So I don't have to read all that.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Bell to approve by reference. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Sermon. And this is a continuation of a discussion we've had for the last 4 months.
Yeah, but we only listed May, we didn't want to put all 5 of them on there. Thank you, Mayor, City Council. In front of you, you should have a copy of a working lease that staff put together based on the direction that you've given us over the last few months. So now you have a working lease in front of you, not an old one, not a out-of-date one. It is a working lease. It also includes Exhibit 1, which is in reference to the right of first refusal that you all asked for us to consider and put in there as well. So now we're to the point for y'all to look at that and give us further guidance. We did list the maximum length it could be. That is open for your discretion to either leave it or change it. And then we did list every year out with a fee rather than lumping it all together, and that's in there too.
All right, at this point, I'm gonna call Mr. Sugg.
Yes, sir. As Mr. Sermon correctly summarized, the lease that is in front of you is ready for adoption as soon as you're comfortable with the terms. And we're not recommending any specific terms. We tried to make it easy to redline it and reach what the collective opinion of the council is. I will highlight, and Mr. Sermon has paperwork with him, and he'll get into this, and I want to make it clear, you're not going to be asked tonight to adopt manual amendments as far as chapters, but to show how we tried to address what came up at the last meeting, there is a chapter that or article, I should say, in the proposed for the Cultural and Rec Services Policy Manual that sets up leasing arrangements and provisions and enables Mr. Sermon's department to rent the McCrary Park through his department like any other venue. In recognition of that, Article 1 of the lease really doesn't change substantively, but it shows the new orientation. And with your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'll highlight, just to show, in section 1.02, it's specified, during the time period May 1 through August 15 of each year, the city will provide to the zookeepers the highest scheduling priority to operate the zookeepers and, in conjunction with the Kiwanis Club of Asheboro, American Legion baseball teams. Provided, however, if the Asheboro High School baseball team qualifies for the playoffs, the school team is authorized to utilize the park in a manner that is compatible with the zookeeper's home schedule. So during that time period, they have the highest priority. Mr. Sermon, like it did before, but even more explicitly now, still, though at other times it's going to be responsible for resolving scheduling conflicts. The proposed lease in section 1.03 at the bottom gives guidance as far as how he's to prioritize. And I'm just quoting now, this decision-making process, referring to resolving scheduling conflicts, this decision-making process is to be guided by the principle that in addition to providing a home for summer collegiate baseball and the American Legion baseball teams, the city is committed to utilizing the park as a venue for recreation programming, incentivizing scholastic play in the community, and bringing visitors to the Asheboro community. So it's giving guidance from the council through the adoption of the lease to the Recreation Services Director on resolving any conflicts and sets those highest priorities so as not to cause a problem for the operation of the team.
What section are you in, Jay?
It's on, as far as in the lease, it's page 311, Article 1, and where I was reading that from was section 1.03 at the very bottom of the page. And then that leads over, as Mr. Sermon quite correctly pointed out, to the term. I'm not advocating for the term. What I did is take the default position of the state statute for this type of property says the city can lease it for up to 10 years. If you try to include a renewal, you have to add that in, so there's no renewal in here. It's 10 years, and so long as you stick at 10 years and no more, it doesn't have to be treated as a sale of property. Once you go beyond that, you have to start treating it as a sale of property. And so as to enable you to be in a position to act, I will say that the state statute also says you have to make a finding resolve, in which we'd enter in the minutes if you get to the point of making a decision tonight, that the property will not be needed by the city. We can go ahead and enter into the record that they have been using this facility for decades now, so it's not going to be an issue of that property being unavailable and the city needs it for some other purpose. So, going with the part of, and also with the statute, it would be inappropriate because it had to be advertised, and it's been continued in open meetings. It's been advertised that you intended to adopt a resolution approving the lease. It's been made sure that it's brought up at regular meetings. Statute requires it, so we can't put an effective date before the council has complied with all those statutory requirements. You can change any part that you want to on this, but just as a matter of convenience, since we're into June, the easy date to try to remember if you decide to act tonight would be July 1 of the fiscal year and go on from there. Within the mindset of making it easy, or as easy as we can, for council to give us guidance on what you want changed in here, and you could change the whole thing. But for what you won't change in section 3.01 on page 4, each of the lease years, lease year 1 through 10, they're listed out. So if you want to make a motion accepting this, that's fine. If you want to make a motion saying you approve it, but I want the following changes, then pick the year or multiple years where you want the dollar figure change. Just as a default, since we're halfway into this year, the $1,000 was picked for year 1 simply because that's what was previously charged. In a memo that was circulated back in May that I observed, I saw that the highest amount went up to $3,000. So nothing magical about it. All that happened at that point was lease year 1 was $1,000, lease year 2, $2,000. Then the remaining years, simply because I saw I had no written guidance going higher, puts it at $3,000 for each of those subsequent years. I will say, and then it talks about things that have been in there before over how it's paid. To get to the point, which came up at the last meeting about a right of first refusal, and I admit, it's not a pure right of first refusal. In section 3.03, at the bottom of page 4, and with your permission, I will quote that. It talks about how in consideration of the limited amount of rental charged to the zookeepers each lease year, the parties have agreed to enter into a grant of combined right of first offer and right of first refusal designed to facilitate a long-term use of the park for a collegiate summer baseball program. The template for the granting of these rights to the city is attached to this agreement as Exhibit 1, and then a grant of rights instrument that conforms in every material respect to the instrument attached as Exhibit 1 shall be executed contemporaneously with the execution of this agreement. And if you turn over to Exhibit 1, which is the zookeepers are referred to as the owner, since they're the owner of the baseball team. The city's referred to as the grantee. And I will, here again, I took a liberty, and you feel free to strike any of this, and I'll be glad to do so. The liberty was, rather than structuring as a right of first refusal, the effort was to avoid having people spend money getting appraisals, marketing, and getting locked in, when the idea, I think, from your discussion was more of a collaborative approach. So it talks about the triggering event is if you're going to transfer to a third party, and that could lead to the consequence of the zookeeper baseball team leaving the McCrary Park venue, then you first have what I'm referring to as the right of first offer. If they make that decision, they need to give notice to the city. The city then has the opportunity, and that notice has to include what their terms are, what they're looking for. The city then has an opportunity, and it's laid out here, and I will not burden you with going through all the details. Happy to go through any part you want to. But it goes through and says the city either accepts it, or if it doesn't accept it, the city can make a counteroffer. When the city makes a counteroffer, there's a prescribed time period for negotiation. That negotiation, if it leads to a successful outcome where the city obtains ownership of the team, fine. It then prescribes so as not to be unduly burdensome. It goes through and talks about the fact, the exhibit, that if we don't come to successful negotiations, and there's, like I said, about a 30-day extra time period put on it, then the grantee's rights, that would be the city, terminate. But it's coupled with there still being a right of first refusal. They then go out and market, and if they get an offer, there's a notice to give the city notice of what that offer is that they received and include the specific offer, and the city has the ability to either accept that, and if that offer didn't happen to include a complete sales contract, it gives the city another 30 days to try to complete it. If we can, in good faith, come to terms, then they can go forward with their transaction. I'll just say, as a matter of real property law, you can't have these rights of first refusal extending for too long, so at the very end, it makes it clear that the duration of this combination of right of first offer, right of first refusal extends for only the term of the lease agreement itself, so that's well within the time frame. I feel like I have talked way too much. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Well, basically, it looks like if they decide to do something, we got 3 bites at the apple, and each of them being fair, that it's not binding, but it gives you 3 evaluations as to what can happen.
It's trying to force parties to talk with each other and trying to make it happen before.
And it's fair to both parties.
Both parties.
Each party has to get what they want, or there's no deal.
It's the intent.
Well, to the extent that the two parties have that control, I think with respect to the Coastal Plain League, they have to okay any ownership group and any member organization of the
There are definitely
league.
limits, yes.
I don't think that they would kick back on us, the city,
Right,
having an ownership interest as opposed to perhaps an individual.
right.
That is something that
It-
they manage.
It is a
as the
limitation
league.
to the effectiveness of this.
Never try to out-talk lawyers. That being said, Jeff, would it be wise at the end of the first 5 years for the council review with ownership for the, to make sure we're going the right direction? Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm phrasing it right. We started out with 5. The league and the ownership prefers 10. Could there still be a clause in there at the end of 5, the council, just so we're connected with the ownership group? Does that make sense, what I'm trying to ask?
I understand it.
I'm not asking the right legal terms.
No, there's nothing wrong with what's being asked. The question is that this was drafted with a mind to have clear triggering events and not get the council and the other parties into going back and forth over operational issues that are questionable.
To the extent that if both parties agree, then it could be renegotiated at any point.
Anybody can do, nothing here says you can't have that sort of voluntary cooperation. This is geared to deal with a situation where, for whatever reason, communication isn't happening, and there's a triggering event to make it happen.
And I think you explained this, but just one more time for the media. 10 years is the length, the maximum length the city can give as a lease. If it's more than 10, it has to be treated like a sale of property.
You have to start using the procedures for the disposition of property is what you can still lease for longer, and it depends on what you're leasing for. For example, there is a longer time period for cell towers. This particular type of property, though, you're at 10 years, and if you try putting in a renewal, the statute says you do count that renewal, and then that triggers you needing to follow, as opposed to advertising it like we did for 30 days, saying that the council's only going to act at a regular meeting, but then the council would need, and once again, Mr. Mayor, since it had to be advertised, we need to ask if there's anyone in the public with feedback. But you're free at that point to deal with the lease. We would have to fit it in another category, and just to use as an example, the cell tower people I've negotiated with, they don't want to do that, because as soon as you open it up for advertising, they no longer are sure that they're not going to have another party intervening at a minimum and trying to change things.
Well, Article 14, I mean, you've got a 30-day notice, but it'd have to be one of the specific defaults, but I mean, you do have an avenue of remedy if something's not going as you see.
Right.
Which gives you an opportunity to have discussion with them at any time.
Exactly.
And this does not extend at the end of this 10, let's say
It's back up.
if it's magically 2034 from now, just so everybody's on the same sheet of music, we gotta start all over.
Yep.
Got to be advertised, go
And
through all
start
that.
all over.
Let's
Whoever
start
the
over.
ownership group is, whether it's the same group, whether it's bought locally.
Right.
Unless it's us.
And I want to go back to Mr. Bell's point. Nothing, all of this is just trying to get parties to have the same framework for understanding what to do if they're not completely in sync with each other. There is nothing here that stops anyone of the parties to the agreement from mutually agreeing, I want to change something. If everybody's mutually agreeable, the city council's free to re-advertise and say, we're changing the lease and going elsewhere. But that's something that happen anytime. This is trying to deal with minimal levels of interaction.
I would make a suggestion, because I think when you said the $3,000 is the highest number that you saw, that was based on a 5-year term. Is that right?
That is correct.
So just for consideration, I think we ought to raise the years, at least years 6 through 10 to $5,000.
I think that's an appropriate consideration.
I mean, because the 3,000 was based on a shorter
Oh, very
term.
much so.
And so I would
I'll
make
sure.
that, ask that be considered by council.
So,
One of the policymakers is free to make that one in. I just didn't feel at the
Okay.
staff level I was free to make
Well,
that.
we directed you to give us a framework to work
Yeah.
from, and so you've definitely done that, so.
which was, I type, here, Jeff, here's my crack at it. Go right ahead, change anything or everything you want to.
But in plain language,
Yes, sir.
if year 6, the city council then feels like we're just not getting enough money, we're not getting enough money for it, then we could go and renegotiate it. Is it,
No, sir. This is locking in
it's locked in?
unless someone breaches, that termination provision is if someone breaches the term of the lease. And so unless there is a breach in the term of the lease, then these are the numbers that will extend for the duration.
What kind of breach, what would that be, breach? What would that be?
They, for example, they don't do what they're supposed to with complying with the
Schedule what's
schedule.
right or something like that?
With complying with the schedule, if they're not doing the cleanup, if the concessions aren't being run appropriately. If we're not doing what we're supposed to, and they accuse the city of breaching as far as on mowing the outside areas, any breach of a term, that would also, and then we would look at anything in there, if that's a violation of the understood agreement, that would subject you to ending the agreement. But if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing throughout, these would continue in effect.
I kind of hate to lock 10 years, the more I think about it, council in 8 years from now, what we do now, kind of hate to just lock them totally in on that.
Well, from someone who thinks it's too low anyway, I'm not in favor of 10 years.
Any part of that can easily be changed with ever how the motion wants to be made. Part of the idea of breaking out in different parts so you could do that as you prefer.
I want to make a couple of comments, surprise, as it relates to the McCurry Park. And I wrote down a few notes, so I'd be brief, or try to be brief. I got no issues with our current tenant. I've known that family my entire life, and they're a very valuable part of our community, and they have my utmost respect. Now, as many of y'all know, my concerns have been with the policies and procedures in this project, lack of a budget, or at least a defined plan, the lack of revenue, operation, maintenance projections, the lack of discussions or projections of potential rental agreements when this thing first started, and the lack of council approval except for change orders that were poorly documented and often submitted after the work was done. So my concerns with the policies and procedures, I'm also concerned about the lack of transparency in the project. We only learned at our last meeting how the naming of the field was handled without city council approval. At the last meeting, it was reported that the tenant has 30 home games. That translates into $32,100 of cost to the city. Not included in that price, and correct me, Debbie, if I'm wrong, is $12,500 of rent for a tent for the tenants to sell alcohol. This raises the known expense to the city now to $44,600 a year. My last example would be when it became obvious that the city would not be able to charge a rate to cover all expenses, and in an effort to be fair with our tenant, I asked if we could contact other stadium owners regarding their rental agreements. The majority of those agreements were in the $20,000 to $25,000 a year range. We then had a group from the city go talk with the tenant with the intent of discussing rental rates within the starting point of $20,000 per year. After that meeting, we were given a staff recommendation of $1,000 a year, which is the same rate that's being paid before the renovation. When I asked about the $20,000, I was told it was not tenable and could not be discussed any further. All three of these examples show a lack of transparency. And a lack of transparency leads to mistrust and often accusations of impropriety. The citizens of Asheboro need to know how their money is being spent. They need assurances that the policies and procedures we are elected to follow are being strictly adhered to. I don't plan on taking up council time with this issue in the future. I know y'all are glad of that, but I will continue to pursue full transparency in all areas of city operations and will make comments when warranted. And I think it's kind of ironic that we're sitting there talking about needing to raise money because we're losing money in the water department. I mean, based on even at the up 5,000, we're gonna be taking over 10 years, if we do 10 years, that's $37,000. Based on the updated 44,600, if we keep renting a tent, which we should have bought one, but that's beside the point, that's $440,000 versus $37,000. Do I have an exact number? No, I don't, but I know it should be more than that. And then for that reason, I just can't see it. Now, I mean, I'm looking at it as it's what I think's best for the city, not.
There's no question, Joey. We understand what your concerns are, and they haven't wavered from the very beginning. Appreciate your comments tonight. It's a well thought out argument. What's done is done, and I'll take the blame for some of it. So.
I will make the comment, the 20,000 and 50,000 and 30,000 rents were exclusive rental agreements, I think. And number two, it does not consider that the zookeepers or someone on their behalf has contributed $1 million or $1.2 million towards this project. I don't think that's necessarily the case with other tenants, with other organizations within the rental agreements that we, observed and saw. So, I mean, part of this and where the $1,000 initially came from was the fact that we did not have the park ready when it was anticipated it would be ready, and there was a considerable expense to the ownership group for the delay in our ability to. It's not saying there's any fault on our part with not being able to complete it, but is the reality it was not completed when we had hoped it would be. So I think that plays into why the rates were set as they were, as opposed to being a net sum game. They bring to our community the benefit of other teams from other places coming here and spending their money in our city, and rooms and restaurants. And so there's an economic issue that we can't always get zero-sum game between our rents and our expenses. So with that, I would make a motion that we approve the lease as proposed, with the exception of lease 6 through 10 being 5,000 in lieu of 3,000.
Okay, we have a motion, Mr. Bell, to approve the lease as presented, with that one exception of changing the year 6 through 10 from 3,000 a year to 5,000. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Moffett. Discussion.
I think 10 years is too long, but.
I'm sorry.
I said, I think 10 years is too long. I like the 5 idea with the, either with a right of renewal. I don't think we should lock ourselves into a price after year 5.
Who brought up the 10 years, us or them?
They did.
And in fairness on the drafting, I simply used the default rule that we use for the statute. How far can you take it in leasing? And that takes you to 10 years.
I'm sorry, what?
I said in fairness on the drafting of this, I actually was going off of the fact that the state statute lets you go to 10 years. And so that's what how I've generally started out at drafting. So I don't.
They had a conversation with one of our council members that indicated that 5 years, really, they weren't comfortable with 5 years on the term of the lease because of the long-term investments they were making at the park and the succession plan that they were working on. They're sharing ownership with their general manager. They've put up 4 cameras for the broadcasting of the games, and that's at the request of the CPL. And they're still making improvements and investment out there, and they felt like 10 years was better.
Are those investments or donations? Because there's a difference. investment implies expected return or ownership. And,
Well,
they-
the $1.2 million is a donation.
Yeah,
And the equipment they're installing, the cameras and such, arguably, Jeff, is a fixture which retains.
they
If the
go with
tenant
us.
moves out, is an attached fixture and stays with the property.
And
So it's a contribution,
very
whether it's a
little
donation or
chance
not.
it will ever use the cameras, but there again. But your point is well taken, Joey. I hadn't thought of that. So, all right.
I'm sure the way they view it is they pay in either $120,000 a year or $230,000 a year, and both are huge numbers. So you have a motion and a second, Mr.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor of approving this lease with the one change, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Let the record show we have one dissenting vote. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I took up Mr. Sermon's time. He did have some documents relating to what we presented later for approval on the manual.
Mr. Sherman.
So we're done with the lease. All right, yes, I do come bearing gifts. Good news is there is no test, and I'm not asking for any action to be taken. This is for you all to read at your, well, somewhat leisure. We do have a deadline at some point. But these are all based on direction given at the last few meetings about the lease, as to further detail that the council wanted from staff concerning policy manual implementation for McCreary Park, along with a fee schedule. And then also and it's a little bit out of order, you'll notice when you look through that. The McCreary Park thing is first, we just talked about McCreary Park, so I thought that was a lead in there, plus it was under your direction. With the proposed fee schedule for the city to start charging rent to people that use McCreary Park outside of the lease. The next document in there is also for the policy manual. That deals with advertising and sponsorship as another form of revenue generation that the city can get at both McCreary Park and the Sportsplex. Following that is a draft of a possible levels of sponsorship for McCreary Park and those things in McCreary Park that could be sponsored. And then the second one is a list of possible offerings at the Sportsplex of things that could be sponsored. Now, that one does not say, they all said draft. I do need to make a note of that. However, the watermark did not transfer on your copies. But all of that is a draft up for your consideration. Nothing is set in stone. But the last one, the Sportsplex fees, some of that was put in motion when it was still up in the air what the Y was going to do, what the city was going to do, and some sponsorships were already given. So that's why some of those already say taken. And we're sort of stuck with those for their term. But the rest of that document is up for your consideration and discussion. But what I'm asking is for y'all to look over that, get back to me in the next couple of weeks with anything you'd like changed, because since this deals with fees and charges, we typically approve that at your budget adoption meeting at the end of June, so they take effect in July. And that's what we would like to do with this. But I wanted to give you all the input. I didn't want to just throw it on you tonight and have you talk about it and give me a decision. But please, look it over, get back to me with anything you'd like to see changed, so that at that meeting at the end of June, we can finalize those things.
Yeah, there might need to be some exceptions about them high heel shoes.
Well, I don't want to get into your footwear choices.
You put it in the rule book,
Can't
not
have
me.
weddings or graduation ceremonies or anything out there that you can't wear.
You just can't go on the playground.
Just on the playground.
Yeah.
Well, that's where ain't that where they had the ceremony?
So a lot of these are already sponsored?
Not all of them. You're talking about the sports
But, yeah,
ones?
yes, like, I
So
see
the
a lot
ones that
of
are marked,
sponsored.
taken, or, I can't remember if it's approved or.
It says sponsored, and it has
Yes,
available.
those have been sponsored, yes.
Okay. That's good.
Jonathan, on the
Maybe you could
manual
hire them
portion,
to
I'm
fill that up.
assuming that you use some of the sportsplex language, just, I remember we had a lot of conversation about that, so
Yes,
there's
so the
probably
very
some
part that
parallels
is-
here.
yes.
Okay, got it, got it.
On the sponsorship, Jonathan, is the city actively trying to, market those, or are we just word of mouth, or how?
But we're word of mouthing it right now because technically you all have not approved the levels. And until we get that approved, we don't want to sell too many more, because we may want to change them, you know, so.
And
You get anything over $1 million, you call me and I'll let you know. It's all right.
word of mouth means it's been the mayor and out hustler. So we, Mr. Trogdon made a good point that maybe we got out of our skis a little bit, so we put it down, put the council vote on it. The council can go out and do it too. The finance committee can meet, they want to assign tasks, they can do however you want to do it.
You want me to give the 5,000 back, or the 5 million back?
No. Nobody does either. We just want to make sure we're on the right.
No, but when I'm not gonna stick it in no mason jar neither.
Correct.
Um,
But this is something that, again, we got a Lisa with us now and her talents. She can help us.
Yes, and to give her credit, that all those fancy pictures and fonts and all that, that's well above my abilities. That's her.
Yeah, so we have a different.
And that's a selling point. I mean, that's what you're gonna take to a.
We had a
sponsor.
suspicion.
Yeah.
And that, and quite frankly, it gets, the mayor and I out of the fire line too, of having to negotiate and decide all these, and then who's what, and when, where, and how's how.
I just noticed when
Yes, sir.
I was out there at the Sioux City, during the real busy days, there were a lot of food trucks. Now, are they paying rent?
Not right now. We'll have a food truck policy coming to you. Right now, what we are allowing, because of the large crowds, when they host those tournaments, such as Fusion or the Triad core group that came in, we are allowing them to bring a food truck in to help handle, because our concession stand can't handle it.
It
There's
looked like
too
a
many people.
booming business, I mean,
Yes, yes.
what I could see.
But there will eventually be a policy where we will get either something back in return, or the city will contract with those trucks.
Okay.
Yep. All right, anything else? If not, I look forward to your replies.
Thank you for giving us, some answers.
Do what?
Are you leaving?
No, sir, I always hang out to the end. I gotta know what y'all are doing.
Well,
I thought this was gonna be a
don't
short.
leave before you talk.
Okay,
I got a question.
all right.
Yeah, the gentleman did that.
All right, Mr. Noble, you will present for consideration a resolution concerning a potential interlocal agreement with Randolph County related to special intensity allocations when water supply watersheds.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Real briefly, the staff has prepared a resolution asking for authorization to pursue an agreement that could allow Randolph County to grant a portion of its regulatory jurisdiction within our reservoir watersheds to the city. That allocation would enable us to continue considering special intensity allocations as they're defined in the city code for land development projects that are exceeding the typical built-upon area cap that is the standard application in those watersheds. So under state law, you have some ability to grant special approval for projects that meet certain criteria. We are nearing the limit of what we can do within our jurisdiction and have approached the county about a potential arrangement that is allowed by the state law where the county could grant us a portion of its jurisdiction so that we could continue to have a available ability to consider economic development projects or other type of needed projects within those watershed areas. This is just the first of probably would be 3 steps of the process. If you grant and adopt this authorization, we would then continue that conversation with the county and the state. Assuming the state and the county also are in agreement, we would come back with the final details on that arrangement. So this is just beginning a process of something that we've talked about previously with you to best position us to be in a spot to be able to facilitate future economic development projects. So we do ask for adoption by reference, Mayor.
Questions? Entertain a motion to approve by reference.
Mayor, I'll move that we approve by reference.
Ms. Heath makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Moffett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item 9, Mr. Nuttall.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I begin, I do want to let you know that we are going to request deferring action items 9B and 9C here this evening. But it is the appropriate time to ask the council to authorize action under 9A. And this would allow Mayor Smith and city staff to take the necessary steps to satisfy the Community Development Block Grant funding conditions that have been applied for the Caspin Homes renovation project. If you recall, last fall, after hearing a request from the Housing Authority to pursue these funds and following the necessary public hearings, the board did authorize us to submit a grant application seeking $950,000 of funds that could be used towards renovations at Caspin Homes. Fortunately, that application was approved, and we're now in a position to go through that process with the Department of Commerce to secure that funding. So this is merely a authorizing resolution saying you want to, in fact, move forward with securing those funds, and we do ask adoption by reference as well.
Do I have a motion to adopt by reference?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move we adopt the resolution authorizing the appropriate action to satisfy funding approval by reference.
I have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Heath. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. To
Jeff, do we
table
need
in
to
B
wait
and
on-
C.
or, we have to vote on deferral?
No, we're just going, the minutes will just reflect that the staff would ask to withdraw those 2 items.
Okay.
Thank you, good question.
At this time, I'll call on City Engineer Michael Leonard. He will introduce a request from the Old Town Village Homeowners Association, which you have some documentation in your packet, to approve a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit subdivision and install the appropriate sign.
Jeff, do I have to recuse myself?
You do live in that neighborhood,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah.
It would be preferable if you'd ask for motion to recuse.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move we allow Councilman Swear's motion to recuse in this item.
We have a motion to recuse Councilman Swears. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Swears is recused and will be reinstated at the conclusion of this item.
Thank you, Mr. Moffett. Staff has received an email request from Dr. Rich, head of the Homeowners Association at Old Town Village, requesting the speed limit throughout to be changed to 25 miles per hour. That's throughout the entire subdivision. At this time, staff is requesting the direction or guidance on what the.
I don't see any, personally, that seems like a very reasonable request. What action would be required of that?
If it's the consensus of the council to proceed, engineering can prepare a plat, and I'll prepare the ordinance to be put on your consent agenda.
Really within our purview to establish such as a city street. So, does anyone have any objections to the requested limit or signs or signage that seems minimal and reasonable? So please proceed with that as
Yes, sir.
noted with a consensus on that. This time we'll call on City Manager
All right.
Don Harbin to give us a report on an update on the city's historic mill property at 159 North Street.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and it may be appropriate that this timing's everything in this business, I guess. Mayor Smith has stepped out, and Ms. Heath has stepped out. As they're on the board of Downtown Asheboro, Inc., I would request that they be excused for this part of this discussion anyway, so.
We need to have a vote on Ms. Heath.
Yes, you don't have a vote on, but you can do it as a combined motion to recuse both.
Do we need to wait on her to get back, throw her out?
Yes.
Okay.
Here she is.
I'll entertain a motion to recuse Councilwoman Heath from this matter.
And the mayor,
And well, he's not voting,
but he still has to be excused
okay. And
To excuse his chairing
of this motion.
of this item and
Yeah.
excuse Ms. Heath.
duly noted, to recuse the Mayor Smith as well. Do I have a motion? You did. A second, Mr. Burks. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We'll proceed along with,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. In your packets, you found one of the best pieces of news we've had in a long time. From the state, the tanks were moved, statement of.
these are hard to come by
Yes, they are,
and not
statement of
freely
no
given.
further actions. And so just for the record, we've received that. The council doesn't need to act on that. We just want to report that to you and have that for the record.
A lot of luck involved in it.
Item B in your packet is the appraisal. This is of the Acme McCrary, the big plant right next door, 159 North Street. This is the big appraisal. Now, the entire appraisal document is much bigger than this, and obviously, you should have seen all the chemistry in this document. This document sets the price of this and the parking lot across the street for $860,000. The council does not need to take action on this either. However, the general statutes require that if you sell a piece for private sale, you have to sell it for the appraised value. So that goes into the record. And what we're asking.
Leaves me out.
So it left me out a long time ago. So what we're asking for tonight, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members, is the item 11C. In your packet is a resolution authorizing disposal of the historic mill located at 159 North Street by private sale. And it says, whereas the city of Asheboro, known as City, owns a real property located at 159 North Street, which is identified former Acme McCrary Historic Mill and further identified by Randolph County parcel ID numbers, and the ID numbers are there, 7751738-393 and 77518321202. And whereas the historic mill is on the National Park Service National Historic Register, and a local landmark is designated by the Randolph County Historic Landmark Preservation, and whereas the city of Asheboro desires to ensure the preservation of this architecturally and historic significant property, and has identified each such action to be in the public interest, and whereas the city of Asheboro has determined that the cost to the city for the continued maintenance and preservation activities to be excessive, whereas Downtown Asheboro, Inc. is a North Carolina nonprofit corporation whose purposes include the preservation or conservation of real or personal properties of architectural, archaeological, artistic, cultural, historical, natural, or scenic significance, and whereas DAI has approached the city about assuming the ownership of the historic mill for the purposes of maintaining the property and preserving its architectural, historical, and cultural significance, and whereas the city has determined that DAI's stated goals constitute a public purpose, and whereas the city council desires to sell the historic mill to DAI for the appraised value of $860,000, subject to a binding preservation agreement, because the city council believes the public benefit to be realized from DAI acquiring the property at the appraised value constitutes a public purpose and sufficient consideration. Now there it be resolved by the city council of the city of Asheboro that, 1, the city authorized to sell the historic former Acme McCrary Mill located at 159 North Street, Asheboro, NC, to Downtown Asheboro, Inc. by private sale subject to pursuant to NCGS 168-266B and 168-267. That the city manager authorized to enter into a purchase agreement and take all action commensurate therewith to dispose of the historic former Acme McCrary Mill by private sale. 3, that a notice summarizing the contents of the resolution shall be published once after the adoption of this resolution, and no sale shall be consummated until 10 days after the publication of said notice pursuant to NCGS 168-267. That this resolution shall become effective immediately upon its adoption, and that's tonight's date. So we're asking the council to approve this resolution so we begin the formal process to sell the building. Now, this doesn't start, this starts the process. This is not the sale. The city attorney, if you adopt this resolution, you will need to give the city attorney direction so he can do the purchase agreement and the deed transaction. So this sets all that in motion.
And the preservation agreement.
And the preservation agreement.
This
Yes.
would be a straight purchase, no agents, no real estate agents,
Nope.
anything like that, just
Nope.
a straight purchase.
Yep, we're selling it right out to DAI. If
And
they're-
yeah,
And then they negotiate
okay.
with their contractor, their buyer, at their price. But this 860 comes back to us. And that goes back. This is a really good move financially. We bought it we used a grant of $1.5 million to buy it. We used a lot to fix the roof up. We still got more than $1 million in that fund. We'll use that in the 860. We bought them for $1 million with a $500,000 remaining. We fixed the roof up and preserved the building. Now with this, we get $860,000 back that comes back into our coffers. So it cost us nothing to get it, and we're making money on it.
Has all the grant money, has that been spent or will be spent?
Yes.
Okay, so that's all grant money?
Right. Yes, sir. So that's what we're asking of the council tonight.
Is there any further questions or discussions for John relative to the property or the documentation or procedure?
I feel like jumping up and down about it myself.
Well, that's
I
okay.
didn't think we'd ever sell it.
We need a happy day every now and again.
I think Jimmy Cagle, the fire department, Jeff and I are jumping up and down too.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move we adopt a resolution authorizing the disposal of the 159 North Street by private sale by reference.
We have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Burks. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. And now the Mayor Smith and Councilwoman Heath can come back join the meeting.
Welcome back.
I'm very excited.
Good for you. We miss you.
Just in time for you, Joe.
Well, I didn't either.
Okay, I think we're at 12. There'll be a special call meeting on Thursday, June 27th, as to adopt the budget.
Yes, sir, and we'll do some final cleanup of the fiscal year and budget amendments. And Jonathan, if we can have some feedback on Jonathan's documents, that kind of thing. So, and we'll make that at 6 o'clock. Then we'll try to have a short meeting in July, let everybody have a little bit of vacation. School starts up in August, and we'll start right back up too.
All right, Trevor?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mary C. upcoming, we did ask the special meeting, June 27th. Also, June 9th is Sunday. That's North Tower. If you've not heard North Tower, they're a fantastic beach band. Friday, June 28th at 6:30, Larger Than Life, an ultimate boy band experience. If you like NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys, this is your night to come. We had a tremendous crowd last Friday night for the Eagles band. I think they're the most popular. June 14th and 15th is the Sunset Theater, as our Night of Rhythm and Blues, the Zoo City Rhythm and Blue Fest. Then the Super Mario Brothers is the movie. And then Caroline Owens is on June 21st, and she's a bluegrass performer, an outstanding musician as well. Saturday, June 22nd is an evening with Rich Powell. That's at the Sunset Signature Series, and that's actually at the library.
And it's free.
And it is free. He's pretty funny. Yeah, you know him through his cartoons. Two things that's not on there. At your place is an invitation to the new grand opening for the ribbon cutting of the new Franklinville Town Hall. I think that's Friday the 14th. Yep, and Friday the 21st, I believe, is Elizabeth Mitchell's. You may have been invited to that. Elizabeth Mitchell's retirement from the United Way. I think Ms. Heath has an announcement about the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, hopefully you all saw the press release and information that was sent out to the Chamber of Commerce membership, that the Chamber has hired a new president, Adam Deeth. He's moving here from Minnesota and will start July 15th. And just the executive committee and the board unanimously approved and are very excited and pleased that the Chamber will be moving forward with Adam.
So is Deeth like Heath?
Deeth, that's
Rhymes
right.
with Heath.
Oh, so we'll be having
I know.
Okay. All right, want to thank the council, Mayor. That's all the staff has. Want to thank the council for their discussion tonight and their guidance. We'll remedy hard to grind on this budget and make necessary adoptions. We'll advertise it fully. We'll communicate it fully. We don't want to be let anybody be surprised. Also, we want to thank Alicia for all the hard. Alicia, welcome her aboard. Thank her for all her hard work. I think Mr. Trogdon was out of the room, but you see in there the packets for sponsorships. That, as I mentioned while you were gone, it kind of gets me and Mayor Smith at a firing lane too, of trying to go out and negotiate this. And we making one deal with one group and one with them. Somebody's offering this and somebody's saying that. So it gets it more, as you requested, it gets it more formalized. And the council is ahead of the curve, not finding out. So we have, okay, that's all we have, Mayor, other than remind the council today, 80 years ago today, lots of folks from Randolph, including Asheboro, were a little busy in Normandy, France. So, including a few weeks later, Ed Bunch's uncle, Captain Bunch, was killed in Europe, and his brother later became our mayor. So just remember, hard to believe it was 80 years ago, but time moves on, doesn't it? One other note, Mayor, for the record, Martha Jane and I are going to be going to Atlanta tomorrow. Speaking of 80 years old, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards are 80 years old, but Martha and I are going to go see them at the Rolling Stones concert, Mercedes-Benz anyway. And we're trying to run down to 80. I want to thank the council. Mayor, are you going to communicate with the ownership group about the lease for the record?
We haven't approved the lease yet, right?
You've approved, the lease is approved.
Yeah.
That was approved tonight.
We'll have to redraft it, just change the changes, make the changes, but you're approved.
All right. Yeah, I will.
Okay. That's all we have.
Let's start down here with Joey. Got anything?
Good, thank you.
Bill?
John stole my thunder a little bit. I had a uncle who was killed 80 years ago on D-Day. He was going in the shore and a shell hit his boat. Never did find his body. So his uncle, he was my mother's brother, Uncle Roy Smoke. So I just was going to mention him tonight too, since he was killed 80 years ago.
Mr. Burks?
Being the good husband that I am, I always ask my wife before I leave for council meeting, is there anything you need me to tell the council? And she always says, no, don't tell them anything. But I know she'd be mad at me if I didn't say that on June the 9th, we will be celebrating our 29th wedding anniversary, so there.
Right.
Good for you. 29 whole years.
29. I was old when I got
Good
married.
for you.
You're still honeymooning.
Still.
Oh, I'm 20. Mine was 28.
You were really old.
And I was old. All right, Walker.
I just had 44, you rookies.
Some of us getting married in first grade.
There you go. I wonder if the mayor's interested in talking limits during the public comment period now.
Not really.
Just thought I'd sort of mention
Once
that.
in a blue moon.
Anyway, I don't know how one supposedly handles that with style and grace.
I
That
am more
was,
interested in where he's getting those numbers.
I
Well,
probably
then-
should have, I probably should apologize to the council, but, I stand up for the council I work for, and I stand up for the employees that work for me, and you can talk to me that way anyway, but you're not gonna talk to anybody else in this building that way.
The unfortunate ravings of a upset person. But
Well,
anyway.
I actually learned that from Mayor Trogdon. We had an argument my first night on the council, who was gonna let Charles Robinson, when they were trying to get the driveway across from Lindley Park School.
Yep.
And he claimed to be dodging these and holding up looking for the one honest person.
Clark?
Just one thing, next Saturday, June the 15th, at, around about 6 o'clock, Marcus Lowry, who was, former civilian employee of the police department, is singing the national anthem, at the Men's College World Series, Game 4. And, I'll just make this comment when he announced that. He says, "My purpose is to bring glory to God first and foremost, but also to bring honor to my family, our city, and our community." And he's been very supportive of Asheboro, and I would just.
And that's in Omaha.
Does a good job of that. He sings about everywhere. These Panthers and the Hurricanes, and not much he hadn't.
If it's a big name event, he's done a lot of them.
Mr. Swears.
I'm done.
You're done for.
I'm done for, that's right.
Ms. Heath.
I was incredibly proud Friday night at the concert. It was amazing to see that many people in downtown Asheboro. I think that was like the biggest crowd ever for a concert. I know all of us were proud. Also just want to thank city staff again for all their work on all the budgets. Doing the extra meetings has been incredibly helpful to break it up, so thank you so much. And I know all the city staff is doing more than they ever have, and we can't thank you enough. So, thank you.
Okay, with that being said, our July meeting is not July the 4th, it's July the 11th. Please remember, July the 11th. Okay. And then we would ask the council to look on their calendars for noon on July the 12th. Friday noon, July the 12th. We would like to have the Matt Reese and the team from PTRC come back, and we'd like to have about an hour and a half. We'd have cold cuts and the chicken nuggets, and discuss the assistant city manager search, the survey results, and then what the next steps.
Yep.
So,
Be over at McCray.
and that will be in the main activities room and at McCrary Gym.
Said 12?
12, right. And we plan to be through. I know, everybody wants to spend Friday afternoon in a meeting. We hope to be through by 1:30 or so, 13:30. So it'll be a working lunch.
Staff, I appreciate y'all being here and all the hard work. Echo what Kelly says. Sir, appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. Long meeting. They're not all this long.
Still.
Lately, most of them have been this long. So, we are adjourned.
Don't forget you gotta talk to John.